The whole world has been played by this man, simply because besides the dreaded Immortal King that strikes fear into all who hear his name, there's also the righteous and great warrior of light. These two legendary figures, as incompatible as fire and water sworn enemies, are actually both his avatars. But who could have imagined that the former Song Yun-han was once a worthless waste with no signs of awakening? Until today, he hasn't left his home for 2 years. Suddenly, a news report interrupts on TV, according to the reporter. A certain store suddenly experienced arson, and the arsonist is suspected to have committed random crimes as an awakener before being transported to another world. It turns out that starting from a certain day, humans would randomly awaken mysterious abilities and would be forcibly transported to another world within 24 hours. To return to Earth, they must meet specific conditions. Therefore, very few people can come back alive. So some desperate people would commit self-destructive crimes before being transported. Song Yun-han was one of the victims. 2 years ago, he not only lost both legs, but also his family. This led him to live in grief and hatred every day, without even the courage to step out the door. Because no matter how much he exercised his legs, there were no signs of improvement. Gradually, the color faded from Song Yun-han's eyes, just as he was feeling dejected and planning to end it all. Suddenly, there was a ding sound, host detected with suicidal thoughts, a cautious system is connecting, innate skill avatar awakened, 24 hours remaining until transportation to another world. Song Yun-han was completely bewildered by this sudden notification. After snapping back to reality, he immediately began packing, because time flows differently in the other world. So to return to Earth, he must survive there for at least 10 years. Time flew by quickly, with only 3 minutes left before forced transportation. Song Yun-han had already packed large and small bags, but he couldn't bring himself to take that step. He even collapsed to the ground from fear. What to do? I'm a cripple with no survival skills. Going directly to another world would be suicide. Just as his thoughts were in turmoil, Song Yun-han finally remembered his newly awakened ability. He immediately shouted, "Activate skill, avatar!" Instantly, an exact copy of himself appeared before his eyes. Song Yun-han felt dizzy, because the avatar's vision was shared, plus the synchronized movements made him very uncomfortable and nauseous. But before Song Yun-han could get used to it, the system reminded him, 1 minute remaining until forced departure. Song Yun-han became dejected again. This avatar is as useless as me, what's the point? If only someone could stand on the transportation circle in my place. His words came to an abrupt halt. Song Yun-han looked at the expressionless avatar and had a sudden idea, so he immediately took control. Ding, awakener identity confirmed, beginning transportation. Watching the light screen and the figure gradually disappear, and hearing the successful transportation, Song Yun-han breathed a sigh of relief as if a burden had been lifted. I didn't expect it would actually work. The transportation circle actually mistook the avatar for me. At this moment, the avatar was born in a fragrant forest with birds singing, bright sunshine and blue skies. But Song Yun-han was in no mood to appreciate it, because the shared vision made him very uncomfortable. His stomach churned, and Song Yun-han couldn't sit still anymore. He quickly shouted to dismiss the summon, then rushed into the bathroom to vomit. But at least he had survived the transportation crisis. But the new problem was, what should I do with this super useless ability? Song Yun-han resummoned the avatar and was lost in thought. Suddenly there was another ding sound that startled him. Congratulations to the host for returning to Earth through your own power without using the karma shop. A great achievement has been unlocked, rewarding the special interdimensional portal. Can instantly teleport to places you've been before, but can only be used once per day. Song Yun-han was stunned on the spot. He didn't expect his unintentional action would make him the awakener with the shortest time to return to Earth, and he also gained over 1.9 million karma. This was extremely precious, distributed based on influence in the other world. It could be used to enhance skills or return to Earth, but that required 1 million. Song Yun-han had essentially accumulated 10 years worth of karma at once. He didn't know if this was a system bug. What if it got recalled later? Better spend it quickly. So Song Yun-han opened the karma shop. The enhance ability values option caught his attention. He clicked and found that besides ability values and stamina, there was also enhance recovery. He didn't know if it was what he thought, so Song Yun-han decided to spend 10,000 karma to try. Instantly, an electric current flowed through his body. Song Yun-han could clearly sense the injuries on his feet healing. He trembled with excitement, because that unfortunate incident not only brought him mobility issues, but also the pain of losing family and the heavy trauma of being shut in. Ding, recovery has exceeded standard values. New skill acquired, extreme regeneration. Soon 2 days passed, and the degree of improvement exceeded imagination. Song Yun-han could now walk normally. His face beamed with an excited smile as he continued to open the karma shop, planning to see what amazing effects enhancing innate skills would have, and it didn't disappoint. The avatar not only gained independent thinking but could also move freely. He also acquired a new skill, Mind Hub, which could ignore stimulation and emotions, only receiving the information he wanted. This meant that not only could he avoid the dizziness caused by crossing dimensions, even if the avatar got hurt, he wouldn't feel pain. So I can explore the other world from the comfort of my warm home. I can control my avatar as if I were playing a video game. Besides that, I can now summon 2 avatars. But over time, I might not be able to tell who is who, so Song Yun-han decided to give them names. Avatar number 1 was called Hans, with the personal trait Magic Affinity. Avatar number 2 was called Harvey, with the personal trait Tough. After everything was ready, Sung-Yun Han smiled. The long-awaited otherworld adventure begins. As his words fell, space rippled around Hans. Harvey had it rough though, because his task was to throw out 2 years' worth of accumulated garbage. Through shared vision, Sung-Yun Han saw the long-missed sunlight. But this time he felt no anxiety or fear, perhaps due to the Mind Hub skill working. On the other side, Hans successfully returned to the other world, and it was already dark. He muttered, "This seemingly peaceful forest, monsters won't come out, will they?" As soon as he spoke, a black panther leaped out from the bushes. Its eyes flickered with hungry ferocity as it immediately pounced. Hans quickly drew the short sword from his waist to defend. Disgusting saliva drooled out. Hans remained calm, just finding it filthy. He planned to end it quickly, swiftly drawing the short sword, then injecting magic power for a fierce stab. The black panther was instantly killed with one strike to the throat. Hans sat on the ground, breathing heavily. Clearly his body was too weak and the fight was somewhat exhausting, but he didn't dare linger, worried the bloody smell would attract other beasts. So he quickly headed toward the distant village. Seeing an outsider, an old man enthusiastically approached. "Welcome, traveler. I'm Malcolm, the village chief. You actually crossed the monster forest alone in the dead of night. That's quite remarkable." "Just lucky," Hans smiled modestly and asked, "Can I stay in the village for one night?" "Of course, that's no problem. Life is about helping each other." Then Hans happily replied, "Thank you so much." Hans didn't expect the people here to be so hospitable. The village chief not only prepared an empty room for him but also took him to the tavern for drinks. Perhaps due to the alcohol, Hans quickly fell asleep, completely unaware that someone had entered. Meanwhile, Sung-Yun Han was eating fried chicken and drinking beer, feeling incredibly good, but Harvey was doing the training he had arranged. Sung-Yun Han's original intention was just to prepare for entering the other world, but seeing the avatars working so hard while he did nothing made him feel guilty. So he actively picked up his computer, planning to seriously research what kind of place the other world was, preparing to become a perfect strategist. But suddenly an ominous premonition welled up in his heart. Ding! Avatar death detected. All traits and accumulated data will be reset. Sung-Yun Han's pupils contracted sharply. What? Hans actually died? Could it be that old man's doing? He actually drugged the wine. Sung-Yun Han looked annoyed, feeling he had been too careless, but suddenly he sensed the avatar again. At this moment, in a basement somewhere in the other world, the old village chief frowned. "I thought he could cross the monster forest alone. He must be quite capable, but he's just an elite skeleton. What a waste." The old man left in a huff. Hans then woke up. Ding! Individual race changed to undead. Acquired special skill decayed heart. What the hell? How did I become undead? And where is this place? When he saw the terrifying scene before him, Hans jumped in fright. Did those guys turn the entire village into undead? Yeah. Suddenly a complaining voice rang out. "How long do I have to stay in this godforsaken place?" A young man walked in. Hans's heart skipped a beat. "I saw this person last night. Could it be that everyone in the tavern was using black magic?" As this shocking thought arose, the other party suddenly squinted and looked over. Hans was startled, thinking he was exposed, but the young man just waved his hand and muttered, "How do those guys work?" Hans couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, while noticing a force trying to control his movement. Although he could ignore this force through willpower, it was better to comply for now. The young man then muttered a few more complaints and left. Hans fell into deep thought. This force felt familiar, like when I was controlling the undead body. Could it be because of the magic affinity trait? If so, maybe I can control undead too. Soon a week passed. After hundreds of attempts, Hans could finally barely control one undead, but it was still very clumsy. Are elite skeletons really this pathetic? Just as Hans was troubled, the annoying rat appeared again and dared to bite his heel. Hans immediately caught it and put it out of its misery. Then he decided to try controlling a rat. Unexpectedly, he succeeded instantly, and it was incredibly smooth. This delighted Hans as he commanded, "Go, little rat, use your ability to hear through walls." Hans controlled the little rat to shuttle through the dungeon. He saw that muttering young man again. He was curious about what was in other rooms, so he decided to follow. Instantly, a towering evil aura hit him. Even with Mind Hub eliminating emotions, Hans still instinctively felt fear. Then he followed the young man outside, who was complaining to his companion, "When will this end? I'm bored to death, and every time I get near that fragment of the Immortal King, I feel my lifespan shortening." His companion was equally helpless. After Hans learned that thing was the fragment of the Immortal King, just as he was about to go elsewhere to gather intelligence, suddenly a spike formed from condensed magic power instantly sprouted from the ground, piercing through his body. The old village chief slowly approached. "So it's just a little rat, but it's full of black magic power. Could it be naturally occurring? Hee hee. Today should be Zeffy's shift, right?" The old village chief suddenly appeared with a friendly smile, startling the two men. Half an hour later, Zeffy cursed as he kicked open the dungeon door. "Damn, old man, it's just a rat. What's the big deal? And what's sticking out there? Line up properly, didn't you hear?" Zeffy irritably threw a punch, venting his anger. Gradually, his expression became mocking. "Isn't this the arrogant uncle who resisted me before? You said if I dared touch your family, you wouldn't let me go, right? Say it again now." "Oh right, I think I cut out your tongue." Sigh, how boring. "The most fun was when I slaughtered the villagers." Just as the young man was gloating, suddenly the undead he had humiliated went mad and bit him. Instantly, Zeffy's shoulder bled profusely as he fell to the ground in terror, commanding, "Stop!" However, the other party kept approaching step by step. Seeing this, he had no choice but to fight back. But then another undead moved, pinning him down firmly, those hollow eyes now filled with venomous hatred. Instantly terrified screams echoed through the dungeon. Hans silently watched all this. He murmured, "The victim's revenge play is about to begin." The scene shifted to a young man arriving at the village entrance, saying he came to find his brother. Two guards said the person left not long ago, their attitude firm, clearly not wanting to let him in. The argument soon alarmed the old village chief, who thought something serious had happened. But when he saw the young man being blocked, he was dumbfounded. Harvey said innocently, "Village chief, I came to find my twin brother." Meanwhile, Hans had already infiltrated where the fragment of the Immortal King was kept. He sighed, "Thanks to Harvey dealing with that old man, I can easily get in here." So this is the fragment of the Immortal King? It seems to be absorbing the black magic power of the surrounding undead. The people here all look quite strong. The place I was in before must have been where they kept the defective skeletons. Tisk, tisk, how annoying. How can it be so picky about food? Now I'll let you taste what defective goods are like, Hans sneered. Instantly terrifying evil power erupted. The old village chief was originally happy that another big fish had delivered itself to his door, but the next second his face changed dramatically, seeming to sense the fragment of the Immortal King's anomaly. He immediately turned into a ghostly shadow and rushed toward the dungeon, not forgetting to order his subordinates to kill and silence. The two guards reacted quickly too, but when they drew their weapons, they found Harvey had already vanished. At this moment in the dungeon, as Hans embedded the fragment of the Immortal King into his chest, instantly countless resentments and negative emotions surged forth. Hans clutched his head in pain. Fortunately, with MindHub's assistance, he finally overcame the erosion through sheer willpower. Ding! The fragment of the Immortal King's black magic power has fused with the individual. Race evolved to Immortal Wizard Demi-Lich. Acquired special skill Sinister Wisdom, granting absolute understanding and ability with black magic. At this moment, Hans's aura underwent a qualitative change, his pupils emitting an eerie glow. The guards at the door were still oblivious. Suddenly a sharp voice exploded in his ear. "Fuyan, don't you know someone has infiltrated?" Hearing the old village chief's telepathic message, the young man looked confused. "Master, there's no anomaly here. Stop talking nonsense. Quickly check the fragment and notify Zephy." "Understood." Fuyan immediately shouted into the prison, "Zephy, quickly go check the fragment." However, he didn't hear the expected response after a long while. Moments later, a dark figure slowly approached. Fuyan thought it was Zephy and immediately scolded, "I called you just now. Why didn't you respond?" But when he saw the figure's face clearly, he was dumbfounded. Hans's voice slowly rang out, "Hello, quite surprised, aren't you?" Fuyan's pupils contracted sharply, his face full of disbelief. But before he could figure out why the undead could speak, bone-white claws had already reached through the door gaps. Fuyan instinctively cast magic attacks, but this instead destroyed the iron door, causing the undead to surge out like zombies, surrounding and overwhelming him. Hans slowly walked out of the darkness, a ghostly flame dancing in his palm. He didn't know if it was thanks to Sinister Wisdom, but he inexplicably knew how to use black magic. Instantly, flames shot skyward with deafening explosions. Hans successfully fought his way out. He gave the undead an order, kill everyone in the village without mercy. The battle immediately began. Suddenly, a skeleton crashed heavily at Hans's feet. He looked closely and saw it was the village chief who had arrived too late. At this moment, his expression was extremely angry. "What did you do to the fragment of the Immortal King?" Hans smiled when he heard this. "Village chief, you personally dug out my heart, so naturally I had to install a new one." The old man's expression instantly became twisted. "You actually fused the fragment of the Immortal King into such an inferior body. Unforgivable. Die, finger of death." As he spoke, eerie black lightning struck rapidly. Hans's left arm was instantly shattered. He couldn't help saying, "Old man, I haven't finished talking yet. Sneak attacking like this is very rude. Shut up. This past year I've devoted all my efforts to repairs and I was about to gain immense power. But it's all because of you. Die." Dark spikes. Instantly, sharp, poisonous vines burst from the ground. But Hans wasn't injured, because a magic barrier was tightly protecting him. At the same time, he quickly saw through the vines' structure and easily broke through the constraining cage. The old village chief didn't take it seriously at first, but when he witnessed Hans easily neutralizing his attacks, his face grew increasingly grave. Suddenly, a vine at his feet grew and writhed, transforming into a sharp blade aimed directly at his face. Fortunately, the old village chief reacted quickly and cast defensive magic. However, after just a few breaths, several cracks appeared in the barrier. The old village chief was shocked. This guy's use of black magic is abnormally skilled. Can't waste any more time. Oath of Annihilation, activate. As the old village chief's words fell, the black mages who were fighting the undead suddenly turned pale. Their eyes became hollow as their souls were drawn out by a mysterious force, finally floating toward the old village chief, forming a sinister crown. Hans couldn't help but frown. "Don't you feel ashamed ruthlessly extracting others' souls to enhance your power? Hee, it's all because of you." The old village chief's face was hideous. "Die, tainted flame of the soul." But before he could finish speaking, a sharp pain suddenly came from his chest. Hans's mocking laughter rang out. "You talk too much. Remember not to shout useless skill names in your next life." The old village chief fell heavily to the ground, full of confusion and unwillingness, never to move again. Hans looked up at the sky and murmured, "Little rat, did you see? I've already avenged you." Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the holy city, the saint who was praying suddenly trembled. She immediately sent for a meeting. At first, Bishop Martin was curious about what had happened, but when the saint said she sensed the aura of the undead in the west, his face changed dramatically, not daring to delay. Riesta's face was equally grave. I didn't expect the Immortal King who caused continental panic hundreds of years ago to revive. No, I absolutely cannot let that happen again this time. On the other side, after Hans reattached his severed arm, he planned to subdue the Black Mages as military force, because in this battle, the undead army was almost completely damaged. As Hans chanted incantations, the corpses actually floated up slowly. He thought he could succeed in one try, but unexpectedly failed. However, Hans didn't get discouraged. After multiple attempts, he quickly got the hang of it. Only the old village chief remained. Hans smiled maliciously, planning to create an undead that could retain its soul for convenient intelligence gathering. But he discovered the dead old man had no soul. Hans opened the village chief's chest and found a magic mark. He quickly guessed the reason. It must be that the organization behind the village chief to prevent information leaks had extracted his soul in advance. Fine, if that's the case, I'll create a high-level undead with self-awareness and combat ability. As Hans slowly chanted the incantation, after several breaths, the old village chief's hollow eyes became sharp, especially those eerie pupils that made people shiver. But upon seeing Hans, he immediately became respectful. Hans looked him up and down and felt very satisfied. He had been coveting that staff for a long time, Malcolm, you understand what I mean, right? The old village chief hesitated for only a few seconds before a hard slap struck him. After eliminating all the black mages, Hans discovered a large amount of gold, silver, and jewels. This delighted Song Yun-han immensely. After checking today's gold prices, he immediately activated avatar summoning. With a whoosh, Hans instantly appeared in the living room. The cold, powerful aura hit him, almost suffocating Song Yun-han. He quickly shouted to dismiss the summon. Only then did he feel much better. Song Yun-han breathed a long sigh of relief, thinking that perhaps Hans's power had increased too rapidly. He needed to enhance his skills. So he opened the karma shop and found his account had gained over 300,000 more, just enough for one skill enhancement. Ding! Innate skill growth. The number of avatars you can possess has increased. Mental power has exceeded standard values. Acquired new skill, clear mind, protecting the mind from external influence and mental attacks. Facing Hans again, Song Yun-han no longer felt the previous fear. What amazed him more was that he seemed to always acquire the skills he needed. After filling several handbags with gold, Song Yun-han came to a nearby gold shop. When they saw the densely packed, glittering gold, the staff were all stunned. They didn't dare neglect him and served Song Yun-han attentively. Until they saw him off, Song Yun-han was very satisfied with the service. Of course, he didn't come out alone, but had Hans hide in the shadows to avoid unexpected situations. Looking at the quiet, peaceful street, Song Yun-han was thinking his worries might be excessive when, suddenly the gold shop behind him exploded. Two figures leaped out from the window. They exchanged glances, seeming quite satisfied with their haul, then quickly fled into the distance. Passers-by scattered and screamed, "It's villains! Call the police!" So-called villains were awakeners who used their abilities to commit crimes. Song Yun-han was stunned for a moment. Those bad memories surged up. Then a fist suddenly struck hard. "Get out of the way!" The two brushed past him. Song Yun-han covered his face and knelt on the ground. His whole body tensed as he trembled through gritted teeth. "Why can't I help with anything?" Meanwhile, the two robbers thought they could escape, but found their accomplice who was supposed to meet them lying on the ground. The werewolf looked concerned and called out, "Portal, what's wrong? Wake up!" But the next second, a figure walked out from the darkness. That cold chill made their hair stand on end. "Who exactly are you?" Song Yun-han didn't reply. Perhaps he himself couldn't do anything. But Hans was different. As black magic power surged in his palm, bone-white skeletons were summoned forth. The two immediately froze, cold sweat instantly soaking their backs. At the same time, the Awakeners Management Bureau that received the report was rushing over. But when they arrived at the scene, they were dumbfounded. The robbers were all seriously injured and unconscious. Clearly, there had been intense fighting, and that person probably hadn't gone far. Everyone spread out in search. They didn't expect the person had slipped away right under their noses. Hans returned to his side. Song Yun-han stretched comfortably. That was quite satisfying. On the other side, in the other world, Harvey, who hadn't been seen for a while, came to a town. He was excited, thinking this trip would make him famous, but found the place looked quite run down. The streets were very empty and desolate. As Harvey walked, he looked toward a nearby alley. He saw a girl surrounded by two fierce, burly men. She kept saying sorry and asking if they could give her more time. The two were unmoved, warning her that she must hand over 2 silver coins within 3 days, or even God couldn't save her. Seeing this scene, Harvey didn't want to meddle, but the girl accidentally bumped into him. Diana quickly lowered her head and said sorry. Harvey didn't mind. He happened to need a guide, so he asked, "Little one, are you familiar with this town? If so, how about I hire you for 2 silver coins?" The girl was stunned at first, then excitedly nodded repeatedly. Soon it was dark. Under Diana's guidance, Harvey came to an inn. Along the way, he learned about her situation. The girl's parents died early. To shoulder the responsibility of caring for her brother, she had been doing odd jobs everywhere. Harvey paid Diana in advance and told her to come find him first thing in the morning. Then Harvey went to rest, not worrying at all that the girl would take the money and run. He'd just consider it a good deed. However, whether it was because the bed was too hard or being in a foreign land, Harvey couldn't sleep normally at all. Feeling restless, he decided to open the window for fresh air, but found that it was only after 6 o'clock, and Diana was already waiting downstairs, and she even showed Harvey a bright smile. The scene shifted to a breakfast shop. Harvey was yawning, telling the girl she didn't need to come wait for him so early in the future. Okay, uncle. Diana was eating with relish. Harvey's mouth twitched. Do I look that old? The girl quickly changed the subject, asking if Harvey was going to eat this. He shook his head. Diana immediately happily put the bread in her pocket. This small city was called Azantu, belonging to the kingdom of Talia in the western part of the continent. Although it looked like an ordinary medieval town, this symbol was painted everywhere, and the printing didn't seem to use paint. Just as Harvey was pondering, Diana suddenly spoke. Uncle, you had deer soup yesterday, didn't you? Harvey was startled. How do you know? Because I have a very keen sense of smell. Harvey looked surprised, then asked, what was that symbol just now? That's the symbol of the Varkalak organization. They control this street. As Diana spoke, she suddenly stopped. Harvey was puzzled. What's wrong now? The girl first sniffed strangely, then excitedly said, it's the smell of freshly baked bread. Uncle, since you're visiting here for the first time, you must try it. Harvey thought it was nothing and looked speechless. Didn't you just eat your fill? However, he didn't notice there was a faint bloody smell in the air. Soon, several more days passed, but Diana disappeared. The just awakened Harvey looked worried because she had never been late. Then two familiar figures approached. Hey, little brother, what are you doing? Tell us if you need anything. Harvey didn't expect what was coming would still come. He immediately took out some silver coins respectfully. You two, please accept these. I hope they can help with maintaining order. The two didn't expect Harvey to be so sensible and decided not to trouble him anymore. Harvey also noticed the familiar tattoos on their bodies. He was curious why Diana was so afraid of them and even warned him not to go near those alleys. Hey, big brother, why did we have to catch that little brat? How should I know? Just follow orders. Harvey's heart trembled. Could the little brat they caught be Diana? Thinking this was possible, Harvey immediately called out to the two. The two thugs turned around in displeasure. Harvey gritted his teeth. Whatever. Momentum is most important at times like this. Anyway, if there's danger, I can immediately dismiss the summon. He was about to speak, but a familiar voice came from behind. Uncle. It was actually Diana. Harvey was dumbfounded, and the two thugs behind him were also smiling menacingly. Little brother? Harvey turned around stiffly, finally escaped the ordeal at the cost of his wallet shrinking significantly. He loudly questioned, why were you so late? Do you know how much money I spent looking for you? However, Diana was choked up. My brother is missing. Because of the food you gave me, he could finally eat his fill recently and became much healthier, but I just couldn't find him no matter how I looked. Seeing the girl didn't seem to be lying, Harvey remembered what the thugs had said and told Diana. She immediately broke down. Why is this happening? Harvey wanted to comfort her, saying, don't worry too much. If they want ransom, I'll help you pay. But Diana shook her head frantically, saying they didn't take Iran for money, but for his blood. Because this city was a vampire's granary. All organizations, including Varkalak, were managed by vampires. Even if they escaped the town, no one could survive. Diana cried in despair, as if she had already seen her fate. However, a pair of warm hands appeared like hope. Cheer up a bit, Diana. Do you know where those guys took your brother? Harvey's eyes were determined. Facing the girl's worried gaze, he smiled confidently. Don't worry, Big Brother is best at dealing with those bad guys. Meanwhile, the village where Hans had stayed before was shrouded in an eerie, blood-red glow. A figure stood on the rooftop, looking at the debris everywhere. This person murmured to himself, what a pity. I originally wanted to steal it after the fragment of the Immortal King was completely repaired, but someone beat me to it. Although I don't know who it was, I still have their location. This person was the vampire Harvey had heard about. At this moment in a tavern, a Varkalak member curiously asked, you two are deep in debt. Where did you get money to treat people to drinks? The bald said he had just extorted a foolish outsider. As soon as he finished speaking, the door was violently kicked open. The member was about to get angry when Short Hair gestured for him to sit down, then mockingly patted Harvey's head, introducing, this is the outsider we extorted. Look, he's come to give us money again. Really? Haha. Wanton laughter echoed continuously, but no one spoke up for the guards outside. Finally, Harvey spoke. I'll only ask once. Where did you take the child you mentioned before? Short Hair's face instantly darkened, giving you face and you dare act so arrogant? Don't you know who we are? But before he could finish, a cold light flashed. Harvey's hidden dagger had precisely pierced his throat, blood spurting out. Harvey's voice was full of anger. Who are you? Just a bunch of garbage scum. He took out one first. With his tough and extreme regeneration skills, Harvey immediately twisted the blade and charged at the other two. The others quickly dodged left and right. One of them crouched down trying to attack Harvey's abdomen, but found the knife couldn't penetrate. He panicked. Before he could react, his head was struck hard by the knife handle. Harvey sneered, didn't expect I was wearing armor, did you? The remaining bald man tried to sneak attack from behind, but was easily blocked by a magic barrier. Before he could be shocked, the dagger had already pierced his chest. How do you even have magic items? The bald man said his last unwilling words, and fell to the ground motionless. Harvey thought it was over, but there was a large group of thugs upstairs who heard the commotion and came down. When they saw several companions lying in pools of blood, their originally lazy expressions were instantly replaced by anger. Seeing this, Harvey wished he could slap his crow's mouth, but fortunately he had brought many magic items. After an intense battle, Harvey finally took out everyone. He pulled out the blade stuck in his body. The wound quickly healed under extreme regeneration. Harvey stepped on the last survivor's face. Where did you lock up the little boy you caught today? Do you think I'll obediently tell you? The thug threatened. My master will arrive soon. You'd better let me go, or you won't even be able to keep a whole corpse. Seeing that the opponent was still so arrogant, even on the verge of death, Harvey immediately gave him a fierce beating. The tavern instantly echoed with blood-curdling screams. Later, in the small attic on the top floor, Harvey finally found Diana's younger brother. At this moment, the boy was curled up on the ground, trembling all over from fear. Harvey quickly comforted him softly. "Don't be afraid. I was sent by your sister to save you." Only then did Aaron realize that the person who came in wasn't a thug. He asked uncertainly, "Do you really know my sister?" Harvey nodded. "I'll explain later. Let's get out of here first." Just as Harvey was about to get up, a cold voice came from behind. "Who are you to dare mess with my food in my restaurant? Are you from the Vow of the Abyss or the kid's brother?" Seeing it was a vampire, Harvey's heart jumped, but he quickly calmed down. "I'm just an outsider being extorted by your subordinates. I just happened to encounter him and helped out." "Is that so? How boring. But I still prefer eating little boys. So you can die now." With that, the vampire immediately launched an attack. Masses of blood came attacking like tentacles. Harvey quickly grabbed the boy and dodged to the side. With a tremendous crash, the huge impact made the floor unable to bear the weight. Even the second floor collapsed with a big hole, crystal clear wine spilling all over the ground. Harvey endured the pain and anxiously shouted, "Aaron, are you okay? Wake up! Now's our chance to escape!" Aaron slowly regained consciousness, while the vampire jumped straight down from the third floor. He said with some surprise, "You actually dodged that attack just now, not bad reflexes. Just right for a warm-up before dinner." The vampire opened his sharp claws and rushed over. Harvey quickly pushed Aaron away, telling him to run quickly and not to come back no matter what happened. Then he picked up a sword from the ground to barely defend himself. Who would have thought the vampire's claws could also extend? Harvey was instantly scratched. Even his protective clothing couldn't withstand it. The vampire showed a ferocious smile. "Your body is quite sturdy, isn't it? Although you're not the originally planned lunch, you should still be very delicious." The vampire couldn't help but lick his lips. Harvey clenched his fist, still wanting to fight back, but his entire arm flew off in an instant. The rich smell of blood stimulated the vampire's taste buds. He opened his bloody mouth, already unable to wait to taste it. Harvey knew he had no chance of winning. A sense of determination surged in his heart. If that's the case, then let's die together. Instantly, fierce flames enveloped him. The vampire quickly retreated. "This is a fire magic item. When did you hide it in your mouth?" "Of course it was when I fell to the ground. When I saw wine all over the floor, I had a premonition." The vampire became slightly serious. This madman couldn't be thinking of mutual destruction, could he? "If this flame spreads to the ground, I'll be burned to death too." But his inherent arrogance soon calmed him down, especially in the face of absolute strength. He believed he could easily handle this human in front of him and prevent tragedy from happening. However, Harvey didn't play by the rules at all. He violently headbutted the opponent's temple. The vampire's brain instantly rang, and he fell to the ground. When he came to his senses, it was too late. He wanted to beg for mercy in terror, but Harvey resolutely ignited the wine. With a tremendous boom, flames shot up to the sky. Deafening explosions echoed. The entire tavern was engulfed in raging fire, illuminating the whole night. Outside, Aaron returned to his sister's side. Diana looked at the tavern with flames reaching the sky. Her pupils suddenly contracted, screaming heartbreakingly for Uncle. Unfortunately, Harvey couldn't hear it. He lay in the sea of fire with some pride. He didn't expect his life to be more tenacious than a vampire's. Anyway, the mission to help the unfortunate girl was completed. Harvey's eyelids gradually became heavy until he could no longer support them. Ding! Avatar Harvey has died. Resurrection time is 7 days. 1 day had passed since that great fire. Although Diana was somewhat dejected, she was still very serious about her work, polishing customers' leather shoes until they were bright as new. Only after the customer left satisfied could she wipe the sweat from her forehead. Suddenly, a gentle voice came from behind. "May I trouble you as well?" "Of course, no problem." The girl showed a standard professional smile, but when she saw who it was, she froze. Her eyes instantly reddened. She excitedly hugged him. "Uncle, so you're all right." "Nonsense, do I look like someone who could be easily defeated?" Sung Yun-han smiled, but he was lying, because this avatar had truly died and needed 7 days to resurrect. To keep Diana from worrying, Sung Yun-han simply decided to summon the third avatar to replace Harvey. Originally, he was worried Diana would notice something strange, but now it seemed he was overthinking it, because the avatar's soul auras were almost identical. Diana hugged him tightly as if he would disappear if she let go. Suddenly, she remembered something and said worriedly, "Uncle, those vampires are looking for you everywhere. You should leave here quickly." Harvey gently patted her head. "Don't worry, I have a plan." The reason Harvey was so confident was because he had the Immortal King Hans. Back at the inn, he was looking at the system panel. Discovering that the interdimensional portal's cooldown was actually 10 days, he had no idea danger was approaching. Suddenly, a black shadow broke through the window and instantly grabbed his neck. Harvey's heart jumped. He didn't expect to be discovered by vampires so quickly. The tremendous force made him unable to move. "You did this, didn't you? The traces of movement from the forest to here are obvious, and you just happen to be an outsider, still staying in our killed vampire's jurisdiction area." But what made the opponent frown was, Harvey not only had no aura of dark magic, he couldn't even sense any blood scent from his kind. "What are you talking about?" Harvey looked uncomfortable. "Hee, don't know, do you?" The vampire sneered. He directly bit down hard. Looking at the human's painful expression, he smugly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Now you can't lie. At this moment, Harvey only felt his blood boiling throughout his body, red veins bulging, until his eyes were completely bloodshot, and he grew ferocious fangs. Ding, individual race has been changed to vampire. Obtained special skill bloodkin, low blood, skill extreme regeneration changed to revitalization. The vampire's cold voice came, I'll ask you again, do you really have nothing to do with the vow of the abyss? Harvey could clearly feel the pressure from his bloodline, and his blood was screaming, telling him to submit to the vampire before him, but Harvey could ignore it, because his mind hub had already suppressed the impulse. So he said, Lord Wyrick, I'm just an ordinary traveler. The latter clicked his tongue. Did I get it wrong? Fine, come with me first, we have things to do. Harvey obediently followed behind, just right to gather some intelligence. Soon the two arrived at the vampire branch. The luxurious banquet hall was full of people. When they saw Wyrick arrive, the vampires immediately bowed respectfully. Toward Harvey, they showed disdain. That couldn't be a low blood that Lord Wyrick newly recruited, could it? He actually accepted such a lowly bloodline? Harvey silently observed his surroundings. Suddenly, a girl casually put her arm around his. Hello, it's been a while since I've seen a new low blood. I'm called Rasilica, what about you? Harvey was startled after saying his name. The girl handed over a wine glass. As fellow low blood, you don't need to be so restrained. This is freshly squeezed blood. Have a cup. Harvey was somewhat resistant, but to avoid suspicion, he still accepted it. Before drinking, Harvey first smelled it. Instantly, a strong desire to suck blood surged up. Even his mind hub could hardly suppress it. Harvey felt it was too dangerous to drink directly, so he blocked his sense of taste and smell. Seeing him finish it in one gulp, Rasilica felt he was very much to her taste. She lifted Harvey's chin and said, If you were still human, I'd be eager to suck your blood. Harvey smiled awkwardly. You've been calling me low blood since earlier. What does that mean? Seeing Harvey didn't understand vampire hierarchy, Rasilica explained. We low blood have a status equivalent to knights in human society. Wyrick's kind of pure blood are nobles, and the tribe leader's true blood is equivalent to royalty. Finally, there's sacred blood. He's our ancestor, and in existence we must absolutely obey. Harvey nodded thoughtfully after hearing this. At this time, Wyrick slowly walked out from the second floor, followed by two people. Also pure blood vampires. The female was called Farita. The male was called Tiapal. Seeing that people were basically all gathered, Wyrick said, The fragment of the Immortal King that the vow of the abyss guys had is missing. Through sensing, we've confirmed it disappeared in our direction, but the aura disappeared. I suspect it has already infiltrated the town, so from today on, everyone must thoroughly investigate their assigned areas and immediately report any suspicious situations. After hearing this, Harvey finally understood that the group of black magic users Hans had killed before were indeed people from the Vow of the Abyss. Soon the meeting ended. Harvey and Rasilica walked on the hot street, both very uncomfortable. But there was no choice. Rasilica sighed helplessly. Even pure-blood Lady Farita went out to search. We can't hide. But I didn't expect the fragment to disappear. Looks like we moved the fragment here for nothing. Harvey immediately stopped in his tracks, looking surprised. We also have an Immortal King fragment? Hearing the affirmative answer, Harvey was delighted. He didn't expect such an unexpected harvest, especially thinking that probably only one pureblood was guarding the fragment now. He became even more excited and eagerly asked, Do you know the fragment's location? Rasilica was amused by his words. Do you think someone like me, a small fry, would know? The scene shifted. Harvey was racking his brains, trying to gather intelligence, but Diana actually said she knew the approximate location. It turned out that a year ago she briefly worked cleaning the cemetery. Every Friday, Varkolek members would go to the stonehouse nearby. Then a very terrifying evil aura would emanate from there. Harvey's eyes lit up after hearing this. He didn't even feel like eating dinner. He couldn't wait to go investigate. But Diana quietly called out to him, Uncle, your scent is different from usual. Could it be? Harvey didn't hide it and smiled. I can't hide it from your nose after all, but don't worry. I won't harm you. Diana was speechless with her mouth agape. After struggling internally for a moment, she still mustered courage and extended her hand. Uncle, if you really feel uncomfortable, you can suck a little of my blood, but not too much. Looking at the girl's slightly trembling hand, Harvey was both speechless and amused. You don't need to worry about that. Just remember not to go out recently, after instructing the two siblings. Harvey sneaked to the cemetery Diana mentioned that night. One of the stone houses was emitting miserable screams. Inside, the lighting was dim and very eerie. A pure-blood vampire was playfully looking at the trembling human before him. Don't want to die, do you? Then I'll give you a chance. If you can wound me with that sword, I'll let you go. How about that? That person seemed to grasp the last straw of hope. Without hesitation, he gripped the sword in his hand and rushed forward. The vampire clicked his tongue. I haven't said start yet. Blood mist condensed in his hand. Blood threads shot out from within, tightly binding and pressing the young man against the wall. Then they turned into parasites and began frantically sucking the young man's blood, until that person became a dried corpse, no longer showing any signs of life. Tisk, so boring. Quickly clean up this waste and go find the next sacrifice. Yes, my lord. The servant was just about to remove the corpse, but was blocked by several shadowy figures through the blood mist. When he saw clearly they were several skeletons, the servant was scared and fell to the ground. The vampire looked over with disgust. How did these filthy corpses get in? Everyone attack and clean up these disgusting things. The vampire gave orders, completely unaware of the black shadow approaching him on the ground. Thorns instantly grew throughout the room. Dense, dark magic permeated the air. The slightly injured vampire stared intently ahead. "Are you from the Vow of the Abyss? How did you know about this place?" Hans walked out from the shadows. He didn't speak, only continuously manipulating the undead. "Tisk, looks like you're not going to talk easily, but that's fine. After I break your arms and legs, asking you will be the same." The vampire swung out waves of blood blades, instantly cutting the undead in half at the waist. Hans remained calm seeing this. "Since you have such big words, let me show you this move." As he spoke, the originally broken undead bodies suddenly turned into bone spikes. The vampire still wanted to dodge, but his feet were entangled by two skeletal hands. "Damn, can't dodge." Just as the vampire was about to take the hit head on, a shout came from behind. "My lord, are you all right? I'm here to help you." Seeing reinforcements, the vampire's face lit up. "Just in time. Did you get word out about the attack?" Harvey immediately answered, "Yes. Lord Wirak's bloodkin are all outside working hard to clear the enemies, and I came in first to help you, my lord." "Very good, you focus on assisting me. That demi-lich's strength is not to be underestimated, but don't think about defeating him. Just try to delay for time and wait for reinforcements." But before he finished speaking, he felt a pain in his shoulder. The vampire turned around in shock, unable to believe that a low blood dared to attack him, and was even sucking his blood, with no intention of stopping. He immediately panicked and tried to resist, but his hands were firmly bound by dark magic. At this moment, the vampire finally realized that Harvey and that demi-lich were working together. But it was too late. His face had already begun to shrivel, and sensing the Immortal King's aura on the opponent, the vampire was terrified. "Are you crazy? Stop it. Don't you know that feeding on your own kind causes mental contamination?" His voice abruptly stopped. Harvey sneered disdainfully, because mental contamination was completely useless against him. Ding. Individual inherited bloodline and gained skill blood magic. When Harvey wanted to try using this new ability to break the barrier, Hans said time was pressing. "Don't delay." Harvey had no choice but to use the most simple and brutal method. With a tremendous boom, a shocking explosion occurred inside the stone house. "Finally found it!" Hans and Harvey both looked toward the underground with joy. That's right, it was the second Immortal King fragment. Hans reached out his hand, but before touching it, he was repelled by a powerful evil thought. The negative emotions within were so strong that even his mind hub could hardly suppress them. This fragment's energy was too enormous. Hans immediately called all avatars to concentrate their mental power on him. With the combined mental power of 3, Hans finally subdued the second Immortal King fragment. His aura instantly surged, advancing to become an Archlich. He also gained the special skill Forbidden Knowledge, absolute understanding of dark magic, and his original, Super Recovery, also upgraded to the special skill Immortality, able to resurrect infinitely as long as the source wasn't destroyed. "Didn't expect I'd be one step too late again." Looking at Hans floating brightly in midair, he angrily shouted, "There he is!" The vampires looked up and immediately launched fierce attacks, but found they couldn't harm him in the slightest. In contrast, Hans just lightly waved his hand. A streak of dark flame tortured them until they cried in agony. At the same time, outside the city, a night squad just happened to pass by Azantu. They thought there was a fire in the city, but the experienced night captain sensed something was wrong. He immediately ordered everyone to turn back to the church and report the situation here to the saint immediately, because that wasn't ordinary ash, but a sign of the Immortal King's resurrection. At this moment, those vampires had been burned down to just piles of white bones. Witnessing everything, Wirak was shocked, because the opponent's aura was 10 times stronger than what he had sensed before. Hans slowly descended back to the ground. He lightly waved his bone staff. Instantly, dense black fog enveloped the two people ahead. That low blood immediately panicked. "Lord Wirak, this smoke seems to block perception. Let's quickly leave here." But as soon as he finished speaking, he was dragged out by a tremendous force. Wirak was startled but could do nothing. He didn't even have time to react before being pierced by sharp thorns. Wirak let out a painful moan. Hans slowly walked in front of him. "Your strength is indeed stronger than other pureblood, but even so, you're just a sack of blood." Wirak gritted his teeth and asked unwillingly, "You actually completely absorbed the Immortal King fragment. Such powerful evil thoughts. How could you alone withstand them? Why ask so much nonsense?" "Of course it's because we're the same person." A familiar voice came from behind. Wirak immediately felt a pain in his shoulder. His blood was flowing away at an alarming speed. Until his death, he never confirmed whether it was the person he thought it was. Ding! Individual growth conditions met. Bloodkin low blood evolved to pureblood. Feeling the power in his body increased several times. Harvey grinned. "Sure enough, feeding on the same kind makes you grow faster. Just wait, vampires. I'm going to devour you all." On the other side, after learning of Wirak's incident, the remaining vampires at the branch quickly evacuated. Young Rasilica looked nervous and helpless. "Lady Farita, what should we do now?" "Return to headquarters and request reinforcements." Farita caught a falling piece of ash. The terrifying dark magic remaining on it made her understand she was no match for that person. And most importantly, the sun was about to rise. With the vampires gone, the Varkolak members were in trouble. They had no backing, hiding here and there, but were eventually all hunted down by Hans. Meanwhile, Harvey hired a small merchant caravan and left the town with the Diana siblings. Because he was afraid the two would go hungry on the road, Harvey made an exquisite beefsteak. The two siblings siblings drooled with desire, and after one bite they exclaimed it was delicious. Harvey was very happy hearing this, perhaps because they left that dangerous town. Their expressions became much more cheerful. By the way, you said your uncle runs a shop in Rafaela City to the east, right? Diana nodded, but didn't know if he would welcome her. Harvey wasn't worried about this problem at all. If it really doesn't work out, giving him a large sum of child support should be fine, right? Thinking they would soon part ways, Harvey actually felt reluctant. Perhaps he hadn't interacted with people for too long. Seeing him spacing out, Diana asked quietly, "Uncle, are you all right? Are you hungry?" Harvey couldn't help laughing, saying he was still quite full. After all, he had just enjoyed several vampires. Soon night fell. On Hans's side, he had already refined all those corpses into undead and made them walk into subspace one by one. This was new magic he had comprehended. Hans was thinking about what unexpected uses subspace might have besides storage, when suddenly another uninvited guest arrived. A sound of breaking wind rang out. A blood spear fast as lightning instantly pierced through his body. "You still dare to stay in town so leisurely? Aren't you looking down on us too much? Also, are you really from the Vow of the Abyss?" On the roof beam, 5 figures had appeared at some point. The leading vampire's aura was even more terrifying, reaching above pureblood. But Hans remained calm. "That's right, I am Hans from the Vow of the Abyss." "Bullshit. Those guys' stronghold was long ago conquered and turned to ruins. If I'm not mistaken, you're the one who stole the Immortal King fragment. What luck, today this will be your burial ground." A crimson blood scythe suddenly struck down. Hans was instantly cut in half at the waist, but he still had the mood to joke. Really dangerous. With that, his figure turned into a shadow and dissipated. The vampire was slightly startled. She almost forgot that Hans possessed 2 Immortal King fragments. If she let him continue growing, he would definitely become a major threat later. Hans originally wanted to pull back some distance, but found space was sealed. The vampire sneered at him. "You can't escape. This is a barrier set up by the strongest blood magic user in my squad. You might as well surrender and die." 2 blood claws suddenly attacked. Hans quickly sensed the barrier. Although he had ways to break it, the newly acquired power still needed time to master skillfully. "Looks like I can only use that move." Hans's voice was low. "I'll say it again. I am Hans from the Vow of the Abyss, and I am your god of death. I've remembered today's events. When we meet again next time, I'll definitely repay you 100-fold. Finally, Hans shouted, "Dismiss summon!" His figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Before the others could figure out what happened, suddenly a black-robed person collapsed to the ground. The vampire's face was extremely ugly, because she recognized that silver arrow. At the same time, the blood magic user shouted in panic, "Lord Oval, something's wrong. It's the Holy Knight Order of the Divine Church. They've surrounded the cemetery and are approaching here." Oval was furious. "Damn lich. Did he stay in town to delay time just for this? Fine, you've completely angered me. No matter where you escape to, I'll find you and kill you." Meanwhile, in the real world, Sungyeon Han recalled the Chunabu lines Hans said before leaving, and cringed so hard he was rolling on the bed, thrashing about non-stop. But thinking about single-handedly eliminating the evil vampire organization and saving helpless girls and the entire town filled him with a sense of achievement again. Sungyeon Han couldn't help thinking, performing so excellently, he should have gained quite a lot of karma, right? Sungyeon Han excitedly opened the system shop. When he saw over 700,000 points, he was stunned. How could there be so many? I clearly almost used them all up on upgrades last time. Could it be related to me instigating conflict between the dark magic users and vampires? Sungyeon Han could only think of this possibility, so he stopped overthinking and directly clicked upgrade. Ding! Innate skill growth. Summon avatar limit has been increased. Obtain special skill persona. This is a skill that uses avatars as containers to carry one's own emotions. This time, Sungyeon Han was finally certain that innate skill growth developed according to the user's needs. Don't look at how calmly he interacted with others in the other world, and even helped defeat powerful enemies. But he could do this because subconsciously he thought it was a game. The Sungyeon Han in reality was still that otaku hiding in his room, escaping reality. At this moment, those negative emotions like loneliness and sadness that had been suppressed for so long came flooding in like a bursting dam. After a long while, he said, "Hans, transfer my accumulated emotions to you." The latter said nothing, just silently accepted. Soon Sungyeon Han felt his chest lighten. Though the emotions hadn't disappeared, they seemed to be stored in a drawer. Sungyeon Han turned and asked worriedly, "Hans, are you alright after absorbing those emotions?" "Don't worry, life is accompanied by pain and despair. I don't feel much about it now." Sungyeon Han looked stunned, never expecting that one day he'd be comforted by his avatar. Maybe avatars that carry emotions develop corresponding personalities. Hans laughed maniacally, as if he was the embodiment of the world's evil. With that, the building across suddenly exploded tremendously. Sungyeon Han's heart jumped. Villains again? This is the city center. They're getting more and more brazen lately, but it's none of my business. The Awakeners Management Bureau should handle it. However, Hans looked at him seriously. "Do we need a reason to eliminate evil forces?" That gaze seemed to penetrate the heart. Sungyeon Han's heart shook. That's right, he was just subconsciously avoiding it. Actually, he wanted to eliminate those villains more than anyone, but didn't have the courage, so he kept making excuses. But Hans was different. He took out an evil-looking mask and put it on his face. His aura surging as he said, "When worldly order shakes and chaos comes, lawless people run rampant, but from now on I am their law." With that, Hans's figure instantly appeared on the opposite rooftop. From 40 to 50 meters high, the conversation between two people below clearly reached his ears. "Damn it, how many attacks is this now? That group has been unstoppable since forming an organization. When will our manpower be replenished?" Didn't expect the villains had already formed a force. Hans, who arrived a step late, felt slightly regretful, but leaving empty-handed would be disappointing, so he raised his hand, and instantly several eyes condensed and flew in all directions. They would become Hans's eyes in the darkness, finding those hidden sinners. Soon Hans saw dark scene after dark scene. Some were bullying the weak, using others' mouths as ashtrays. Some were drunk and beating their wives. Others were sneaking into houses to steal at night. Hans saw everything clearly. Although they weren't the villains he was looking for, he still wanted to punish these scum, carving fear deep into their souls, leaving indelible trauma, and making them remember that if they dared harbor evil thoughts again, they would surely see him again in the darkness. The same scenes played out throughout the city. Hans was gradually becoming familiar with his new power, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to clean the city even more thoroughly. Soon a new day arrived. Hans, who had cleaned up scum all night, felt extremely refreshed. Although the dark eyes helped a lot, the defect was obvious. They couldn't see light. So Hans needed more effective methods to find enemies, but it wasn't good to directly release undead in the city. How should I solve this? Hans was already troubled, but then a bird actually dared to defecate on his head. Hans was immediately furious, just about to teach these stinking birds a lesson, but suddenly slapped his forehead. Ubiquitous yet inconspicuous. Able to move freely, isn't this exactly what I need? At this time in the other world, Hans occupied a goblin nest near Azantu. He was researching a magic that could control animals at will. His head was splitting from it, because he needed the familiars to look completely inconspicuous and have strong infectivity, so magic power control had to be extremely precise. Hans finally understood why programmers went bald at such young ages. He slowly exhaled black breath, looking hopefully at the black cat in the cage. The black cat suddenly trembled, then underwent horrifying mutations, its face becoming ferocious like it had rabies. The experiment failed again. Only then did Hans realize. 3 weeks had passed in a flash, and he only had the last test subject left. Holding on to his last hope, Hans grabbed the fluttering pigeon and calmed it down. He held his breath and precisely adjusted his magic power, then slowly exhaled black breath again. The pigeon was instantly enveloped by black fog. After brief dizziness, it suddenly spread its wings and flew out of the cave. Hans's face showed joy. The first step of being inconspicuous finally succeeded. Next was to test infectivity. The pigeon flew back to its flock. The barely detectable dark magic on its body quietly spread, quickly infecting other companions. Hans's lips curved up, finally succeeded. He immediately ordered, "Go, become my spies, spread the seeds to more animals." Soon half an hour passed. Hans sat cross-legged in the cave. He had said it so familiars would immediately send back intelligence when encountering monsters. Now he just needed to check if he could receive it smoothly. But gradually Hans sensed something was wrong. Noticing the familiar on the ground was acting strangely. It seemed like it was fleeing and seemed afraid, but if it encountered a monster, it should send intelligence back to me. Because the mouse was small with obstructed vision, Hans could only hear horse hooves through its ears. From this he judged it should have encountered humans. His heart jumped. How could there be people in this remote place? It turned out the Holy Knight Order was still searching nearby. Their Archbishop Lacius suddenly received a message from the Saintess, saying they had recaptured the Immortal King's aura in their northwest direction. Lacius clasped his hands together. "Thank you, Saintess. We absolutely won't disappoint your intelligence." At this moment Hans discovered through his familiar that he was actually surrounded. Suddenly an arrow shot toward the pigeon he was controlling. Knight Captain Tuscan shouted sternly, "Hans of the Vow of the Abyss, your cunning schemes won't work on us. No evil force can escape God's scrutiny. Surrender now." Hans didn't expect the church people to come. This was troublesome. Divine power and dark magic were mortal enemies. He was about to ask how they knew his location, but the opponent didn't give him a chance to speak and slashed with a sword. "I won't give you a chance to speak. Don't think you can bewitch me with your silver tongue." Hans looked speechless. "Fine. I'll play with them a while, then find a chance to escape." He struck out with his palm. Instantly magic energy surged. Tuscan wasn't to be outdone either. Divine light blazed in his palm, instantly dispelling the darkness. Hans took another sword strike head on. His voice was low. "Are you going to condemn me, one who punishes evildoers? Shut up. From the moment you touched forbidden power, you became complicit with evil." Ridiculous. What kind of twisted logic is that? Hans wanted to strike back, but found his magic was blocked by something, and a fist was already coming at him. Hans instantly flew backwards and crashed heavily into the wall. Only then did he notice there were people standing on the cave roof, and their singing was weakening his power. Hans was very annoyed, especially wanting to kill them directly, but finally restrained himself. "Choir members, now, bind him!" Tuscan leaped up and thrust his holy sword down with full force, pinning Hans firmly to the ground. At the same time, the singing changed tone, turning into chains that wound toward Hans, sealing him in midair. "Damn, I was too careless. Now I can't move, and can't even use magic." Hans looked ugly as he joked. "You really went to great lengths to catch me. Of course, no evildoer can break free from this binding. Have you given up resistance now?" Hans laughed after hearing this. "How is that possible? You're too naive to think you can catch me with just these people. Remember, if I want to leave, no one can stop me. Tuscan heard this, and divine light gathered in his palm, throwing it fiercely. Although I don't know what you're planning, do you think I'll stupidly let you escape? Han saw this and sneered. It's useless, no matter how solid the binding, it can't lock me up. Finally, he shouted, "Dismiss summon!" His figure instantly disappeared without a trace. Tuscan's eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? How did he escape after escaping from the Holy Knight Order? Songyeon Han lay on the bed with a headache, feeling he had made too many enemies. Besides the Vow of the Abyss and the vampire families, now he had added the Order of the Divine, one of the continent's strongest forces. Songyeon Han suddenly realized that the reason he had gained so much karma before was actually because he had attracted the hatred of all the major forces across the continent. He shook his head irritably, deciding to focus on completing his unfinished tasks for now. Soon night fell, and Hans appeared in a small alley, muttering, "It's time to harvest the fruits of this period's research." As he spoke, a dark mist attached itself to a stray cat. Its vision was completely captured by Hans, yet it remained completely unaware. Then the dark mist spread to other stray cats, all becoming Hans's eyes and ears. Soon 1 told 10, 10 told 100. Any disturbance throughout the entire city could not escape Hans's eyes. Immediately, the first target appeared. Terrified pleas for mercy echoed from a female streamer's home. "Please spare me, sir. Whether you want money or something else, I'll give you everything." The girl kept backing away. Suddenly seeing someone passing by the window, she immediately called out, "The handsome guy with glasses, I've been kidnapped, save me!" However, that person walked straight past as if he hadn't heard anything. The pervert grabbed the girl's hair with a wicked grin. "Stop screaming. Under my ability's isolation, no one will hear you even if you scream your throat raw to save you. Just obediently become my collection." "Who told you to sing so beautifully?" The pervert smiled wickedly, just as he was about to strike the killing blow. Suddenly, a figure burst through the window. Hans's voice was low. "Your ability is not bad, being able to isolate sound and turn invisible, but unfortunately it's useless against me. Your disgusting deeds end today." The big man hurriedly took the girl hostage and shouted, "Who are you? How did you get in? If you don't explain clearly, this woman is dead." "Is that so?" A dark mist quietly spread. The girl was instantly transferred to Hans's hands. The big man was both shocked and furious, trembling with rage. "You dare steal my prey! You're seeking death!" The big man charged with a knife, but before he could get close, vines formed from dark magic tightly bound him. Hans approached step by step, looking at your attitude when speaking. "You must have done this more than once or twice. Let me see just how deep your sins run." Hans pressed his head and activated the soul-searching technique, dark magic echoes of the dead. Instantly, scene after scene of cruel images appeared before his eyes. Hans clicked his tongue. "So you're a serial killer. Then there's no need to look further. Death penalty it is?" His thumb applied force. The big man instantly had a hole in his forehead, blood flowing from all 7 orifices as he suffered in agony. Hans sighed. "Someone like you can hardly find salvation even in death. I happen to need an undead I can command on Earth, so I'll refine you." Hans raised his hand as demonic energy surged, and soon it was complete. He made the medium undead ghast enter the subspace. Then he looked at the unconscious girl on the ground. Hans couldn't be bothered with cleanup and called the police. Soon this place was sealed off by the Awakeners Management Bureau Crime Investigation Division. After reviewing surveillance, examining the scene, and questioning the girl, an officer reported, "Team leader, it's confirmed. This is the serial killer we've been desperately searching for. He was killed by a mysterious person wearing a mask. Although we couldn't find the body, the blood on the ground tested positive for large amounts of dark magic. And that mysterious person left a message on the wall." Hanchel Park thought it would be some important intelligence, but when he looked, his mouth twitched. "Death penalty executed. What does he think the law is? Just some guy who thinks he's playing hero games because he has a bit of power. I bet the culprit is either some brat or a lunatic," Park muttered to himself, completely unaware that Hans was on the rooftop silently watching everything below. Soon a night passed. Inside the Returners Association branch, a neatly dressed female secretary knocked on the door, but there was no response from inside. Only snoring sounds came through. She walked straight in with an exasperated expression. "Ms. Ji-yoon, wake up quickly. The Awakeners Management Bureau is requesting our assistance." The latter took the documents while fighting off drowsiness. She didn't expect that jewelry store capture case to be connected to this serial murder case. Ji-yoon saw the description of Hans's characteristics, but her eyelids grew heavier and heavier, so she simply gave up and sighed. "Security is so bad now, and the higher-ups still won't give us more manpower. I want to hand all cases over to that guy." The female secretary was startled. "What are you talking about? That guy has killed people." Ji-yoon said irritably, "What I mean is, since he's so capable, as long as we put him on a leash and manage him properly, he could definitely become a great dog." The secretary said unhappily, "Stop daydreaming and handle these documents first." When Ji-yoon saw the small mountain of documents piled on her desk, she immediately broke down. Meanwhile, Han Sung-yeon was in an excellent mood, because Hans had not only eliminated the killer last night, but also taught some thugs a lesson, planting curses of intimidation on them. The next task was to investigate the villain organization. Han Sung-yeon didn't need to arrange anything. Hans would go do it himself. At the same time, Harvey and Dina finally arrived at Raffaella City. When their uncle learned of their ordeal, he was immediately heartbroken. Seeing the genuine emotion displayed, Harvey felt reassured. Soon the man bowed to thank him. Harvey waved his hand. "It's nothing major." Dina knew they would soon part ways and immediately hugged him tightly with reluctance. "Uncle Uncle, thank you so much during this time. Seeing her eyes red from crying, Harvey couldn't help but smile. It's not like we'll never see each other again. I'll come visit you often. You must be obedient, okay? Dina nodded and said, Uncle, I always feel like your personality is changing. I'm worried. Harvey was startled. Is that so? Could it be the influence of the persona? It turned out that after Han Sung-yeon transferred negative emotions to Hans, he also gave silence and deception to Harvey, causing his personality to be more calm and composed now. Finally, Dina asked, Uncle, where are you planning to go next? Harvey didn't hide it and looked toward the west. I plan to take this opportunity to visit the Holy Land. After several days of travel, Harvey finally arrived at the kingdom of Talia. This was the headquarters of the main god sect. He walked into a deserted alley, finally summoning back the original avatar Harvey. His personal trait Tough had already upgraded to Warrior's Body. This allowed him to gain additional amplification from experience and skills obtained through training or combat. The substitute for Harvey said, Alright, I can't stay here long. Take this, you go act in the open. Harvey nodded, then came to the Holy Land Church. He directly poured out an entire bag of gold coins. The person in charge was stunned. My God, how much money is this? Harvey said devoutly. This is all the money I have. I want to dedicate it all to God and become a paladin. Since the current avatar's identities were basically all evil dark beings, Harvey decided to seize this opportunity to become a light knight wielding a holy sword and respected by all. The bearded man excitedly slapped the table. Very good. What a spirited young man. This instructor will definitely train you into an excellent paladin. The white-bearded old man beside him was immediately shocked. Sir Marco, even if he donated a lot of money, you can't just let someone of unknown origin become a paladin. Haha, clerk, you don't need to worry about this. Evil beings will inevitably reveal their true nature when receiving paladin training. Then he looked at Harvey. How about it, recruit? Do you have confidence? Of course. Harvey's eyes were filled with determination. However, things were completely different from what he imagined. Paladin training was utterly insane and crazy. Not only did they have to do squats while holding iron balls weighing over 100 pounds every day, they also had to sing hymns and repeatedly pray to God while exercising. It was said this could not only repair broken flesh, but also strengthen faith and enhance holy power. Harvey admitted this method was indeed effective, but was it really necessary to be this crazy? After a month of hellish training, Harvey had developed 8-pack abs. His outstanding temperament made him a total heartthrob who could captivate countless girls, completely different from those pure muscle men. Suddenly, he heard two instructors discussing him. Marco, this recruit you brought has quite remarkable strength. He can handle such high weight without even receiving baptism, especially his shoulders and lower body. Compared to before, he's like a completely different person. I really look forward to seeing how much he can improve after baptism. Harvey immediately felt something was wrong. Why are you looking at me and drooling? Time flew by and 3 months passed. Under the enhancement of Warrior's Body and super recovery skills, Harvey's muscle definition became increasingly pronounced. He had just finished wiping off sweat and was preparing for the next training session. Suddenly, instructor Marco called him over. Sir Harvey, you just finished training your upper body. How about we train the lower body together? Another instructor also came over, saying they should have a sacred chest bump. Watching the two flexing their chest muscles and inviting him, Harvey's mouth twitched as he roared internally, Can you muscle pervert stay away from me? Soon, the day of baptism suddenly arrived. Harvey and his friend Rowan, whom he met during training, went to the assembly point together. Suddenly, a crowd gathered ahead surrounding two figures. It was Archbishop Latius and Lord Tuscan returning from their expedition. Harvey was startled after seeing them. Wasn't that person the paladin who drew his sword against Hans? He had been away for so long. Could he have been searching for Hans this whole time? Soon the recruits gathered in the church. After the high priest gave a speech on stage, he began calling names for the trainees to come up for baptism. Rowan whispered, Usually this event only happens twice a year. Why is it being held so soon this time? Harvey had already guessed the reason. Probably to hunt down the Immortal King's descendant. The Paladin Order urgently needed to replenish their ranks. But saving time was good news for Harvey. Soon it was Rowan's turn. The high priest raised his hand and asked, Are you willing to dedicate everything to God? I am willing, Rowan answered without hesitation. Those receiving baptism must dedicate all their mana to God, thus they can never use magic again. But in return, God grants blessings, allowing them to gain powerful holy power. The strength of the blessing depends on faith in God, so the purer and more genuine the faith, the more likely one is to become a powerful paladin. Finally, it was Harvey's turn. He remained composed, having already devised a strategy. First, use the persona skill to infuse himself with faithful emotions, then use the mind hub to filter out distrust and doubt. This way, when the high priest extracted mana, there would be only pure faith. Finally, and most crucially, to receive the maximum blessing. Harvey had all his avatars concentrate their mental power on himself. In an instant, light blazed forth. The holy power actually shot up to the heavens, reaching the top of the divine statue. Everyone present was shocked beyond belief. The high priest clapped his hands repeatedly in praise. Lord Harvey, you are truly remarkable. Having just received baptism, your faith is already so firm and pure. Of course, don't be proud of this. You must continue to strive for improvement. Harvey nodded in acknowledgement. Ding! Acquired skill Holy Baptism enhances avatar potential and allows more effective sharing of each avatar's mental power. So this is holy power? Harvey mused to himself. He had originally worried that false faith would be exposed, but fortunately he got through it, though it wasn't entirely. Because during baptism, Harvey felt as if God was watching him, so he only dared use this power for righteous purposes. At this time, in a quiet room, Archbishop Lacius looked worried, because after several months, they hadn't even found a shadow of the Immortal King's descendant, and he really had no face to meet the Saintess. Also, support from the Kingdom of Talia couldn't be counted on, because vampire forces infiltrating the kingdom were interfering. And during the pursuit of the Immortal King, conflicts with vampire families and the vow of the Abyss were too great. Plus, the expedition team had no results for so long, so the Kingdom of Talia took the opportunity to apply political pressure. Lacia said helplessly, "Have all the expedition teams return." Tuscan nodded heavily. Now surrounded by enemies and severely lacking in combat power, he didn't know what to do either, so he also sighed as he walked out. Suddenly, the sound of clashing metal rang out from downstairs. Tuscan looked down. It turned out to be newly appointed paladins sparring in the dueling ground. The two dueling were Rowan and Harvey. Seeing an opening in his opponent, Rowan immediately thrust with his spear. Harvey was instantly hit in the abdomen. However, Harvey didn't make a sound and directly struck back with an elbow. Rowan obviously didn't expect this and was defeated. Ding, through repeated training and development, acquired skill Paladin's combat technique. Under the combination of super recovery and holy power, Harvey's wound quickly healed. Rowan was helped up and asked, "You deliberately let me hit you, didn't you?" "What a brilliant surprise attack," Harvey smiled, but he felt it wasn't enough. To grow further, he had to seek new breakthroughs. Just then, a steady voice sounded from behind, "Judging purely by holy power, you've indeed reached the level of an instructor or senior paladin. But to truly become a paladin, you're still too inexperienced." Harvey turned in surprise Lord Tuscan. The latter walked closer step by step and extended his hand. "You should know this yourself. I will make you stronger, so would you like to come with me to the Roselia Grand Church?" Everyone was shocked by these words. Harvey even doubted if he had heard wrong. "What? Are you unwilling?" Harvey came to his senses and quickly said, "No, of course I want to go." Tuscan said, "Then come with me. We're leaving immediately." Harvey wanted to say he needed time to pack, but Tuscan replied, "Such trivial matters can be handled by sending someone to collect them." He patted Harvey's shoulder. "I understand you're panicked by being summoned so suddenly. When we reach the Grand Church, I'll explain everything to you." As he spoke, light flared and the teleportation array activated. When his vision cleared again, what came into view was a magnificent and imposing palace. Harvey looked around nervously, because this was the most core location of the main god sect, located at the center of the continent. Even the Pope and Saintess lived here. The interior was luxuriously decorated and filled with sacred atmosphere. The two waited quietly in the great hall for a moment. A gentle voice suddenly rang out, "Tuscan and Lord Harvey, thank you for coming such a long way." Tuscan immediately bowed upon hearing this. "Greetings, Saintess." Harvey did the same. He was extremely excited inside, because this was the best place for cultivation. He would become a respected paladin under the guidance of holy light. Meanwhile, Hans hadn't been idle either. He discovered a human trafficking organization and completely eradicated it. He even accidentally became famous online, but what made Hans curious was, those thugs kept muttering about something called Skybreakers. It seemed to be the villain organization he had been looking for, but after soul-searching and interrogation, there were no clues, which immediately piqued Hans's interest. But he wasn't in a hurry. He'd find out eventually by continuing his cleanup. For now, he should go settle the money earned this time, because Hans had seized quite a few valuable items this time, but selling them openly would inevitably attract police investigation. So he used his network to find an underground trading post and arranged for Harvey's previous substitute to handle it. To distinguish them, let's call him Hardin. The location was a game arcade. There was just one clerk inside. Hardin got straight to the point. "I want to sell some things." The other person frowned. "You've come to the wrong place. We're not a pawn shop." But Hardin directly opened his bag and poured out the contents. "Is that so? But I heard this place loves this kind of stuff the most." Seeing the human trafficking group's badges, the clerk was shocked. Didn't they get wiped out by some masked maniac? Hardin didn't explain, but coldly said, "I'm just asking if you'll take them." Those eerie red pupils stared at the clerk, making him shiver. He hurriedly said, "Just go through the back door and downstairs." Hardin entered the secret room through the hidden passage. A masked staff member was already waiting for him. Hardin asked directly, "I don't want cash. Can I exchange for something else?" After the other party verified the goods were genuine, he asked, "What do you want?" Hardin thought for a moment. Lottery tickets. This would also explain the source of the money. Seeing that Hardin didn't care about the high handling fees at all, the other party checked on the computer. "There's 140 million prize with 4 months left to claim. Is that okay?" Hardin nodded. "No problem. Prepare 2 tickets for me." However, the other party shook his head. "Sorry, with what you've paid now, you can't exchange for that much." Hardin smiled mysteriously. "Is this enough?" Seeing him produce 3 gold ingots like magic, the staff member was amazed. "Brother, you're incredible. Is that a subspace item? Where did you get it?" Seeing the other party grab his wrist and not let go, Hardin immediately became displeased. and a thick, killing intent spread. The staff member was startled. Realizing his impropriety, he quickly withdrew his hand and stopped talking. Good. Remember not to ask what you shouldn't ask. We'll be seeing each other often. Complete the transaction quickly. Then Hardin left the underground trading post. He walked down the street holding 2 first-prize lottery tickets worth 100 million each. In an excellent mood, especially enjoying the pleasant evening breeze. This street had originally been unsettled due to the human trafficking group, but after Hans eliminated them, it had regained much of its vitality. Thinking that this peace was brought by himself, Hardin felt a sense of accomplishment, but suddenly a low voice sounded from behind. "Where are you from?" Hardin turned around in shock to find a red-haired man had somehow appeared behind him. Seeing Hardin's wariness, the other party said, "Don't be nervous, I just want to chat with you." Hardin thought he was a stalker or pervert and shouted, "What do you want?" But the other party's next words made his heart shake. "You're a vampire, aren't you?" "Actually, I am too. Level 6. From the Dotmere dimension. What's your name and when did you return to Earth?" Hardin was shocked, not knowing what the other party was planning. He prepared to give random answers and then escape, but he found his body was like being hit with a paralysis spell, and he truthfully told everything. Hardin's expression changed drastically. This was bad, it was mental control type ability, but the other party didn't attack again, instead introducing himself. "I'm Gamma, a member of Earth's vampire organization, the Blood Alliance. I'm responsible for recruiting vampires like you who haven't been back to Earth long." Hardin took the business card and examined it carefully. He didn't expect such an organization to exist. Gamma shrugged. "No choice. To survive, we have to unite." Hardin asked curiously, "What did you mean by level earlier?" Gamma said, getting interested. "This isn't a good place to chat. Let me take you to see for yourself." Gamma pressed his car keys. A red sports car on the roadside immediately roared to life. Hardin was amazed. Then the two got in the car and drove away, completely unaware that 3 figures in the distance had been watching them. The leading woman spoke a few words into her earpiece and quickly followed. Before long, Hardin was brought to a secluded building. Inside, it was very eerie. Several black-robed figures stood with a magic circle at their feet. Gamma explained, "This magic circle was invented by our Blood Alliance to detect vampire factors. If you want to know your level, stand on it." Hearing his urging, Hardin became suspicious. But if he sensed danger, he could cancel the summoning, so he suppressed his doubts and walked on. Hardin looked around, becoming more shocked the more he saw, because this magic circle actually fused together multiple different system ability laws like black magic, sorcery, curses, and alchemy. You must know that about 20 years since returners appeared, magic items were still quite rare. Magic technology also couldn't break through bottlenecks, the fundamental reason being that ability laws from different dimensions had huge differences. But this Blood Alliance organization could actually unite so many different source powers as one. It seemed they were more unfathomable than he thought. While thinking, a black-robed figure had already approached, telling Hardin to extend his hand. Then the dagger cut, and blood gushed out. The blood strangely condensed into 5 blood pearls floating in the air, representing Hardin's 5th level. The black-robed figure said, "The connections between your blood pearls are solid, indicating your regeneration ability is strong. It seems Auterica's purebloods are probably around level 5 to 6. Gamma finally stopped pretending and smiled. "I was originally worried when he said he came from a dimension I'd never heard of. Turns out he's only 5th level. No need to cut off hands and feet then, just attack directly." The black-robed figures responded in unison, "Yes, Lord Gamma." In an instant, the underfoot glow blazed. Hardin knew such a complex magic circle couldn't just be for detecting levels. Just as he was about to summon Hans for assistance, suddenly banging sounds came from the door. The next second, 3 figures rushed in. "Nobody move! Gamma, I'm arresting you on charges of kidnapping and murder." Gamma looked displeased. "Soran Jin, it's quite rude of you to suddenly barge in." Hardin was surprised. "Who is that woman? I feel like I've seen her somewhere." "Gamma, release that vampire and surrender obediently." "Hehe, Soran Jin, you really are a loyal and naive watchdog for the Blood Alliance. We vampires are clearly far superior to humans in strength, so why should we follow Blood Alliance rules and live like rats in the shadows looking at human faces?" "Shut up," Soran Jin said angrily. "Isn't this all because of you radicals acting recklessly?" Gamma sneered coldly. "Maybe that's what you think, but what about your companions?" Before Soran Jin could react, the burly man behind her suddenly attacked, striking viciously at the woman beside him. Soran Jin turned back in shock. "Min Young, what are you doing?" But before she could finish speaking, claws had already pierced her abdomen. Intense pain hit. Soran Jin's face went pale as she collapsed to her knees. Only then did Min Young said, "The reason why I betrayed is simple. In my dimension, I was a lord with a castle and status, but after returning to reality, I could only live in a basement and work as a broken security guard at a nightclub. So now you understand, don't you?" Soran Jin had nothing to say. "Then what are you kidnapping these vampires for? Are you planning to rebel against the Blood Alliance?" Gamma wasn't afraid of exposure and openly said, "Although it's hard to gain karma points in reality and thus impossible to become stronger, through our relentless research, we finally found a shortcut." Soran Jin was shocked. "You couldn't have committed the taboo, could you?" Gamma laughed coldly. "Otherwise, where do you think those kidnapped vampires went?" Soran Jin's pupils contracted. "Don't tell me you want to create a berserk vampire again. Have you forgotten why we suffered such persecution in the first place?" Berserk vampires refer to those who hunt their own kind, rapidly increasing strength by combining different vampire factors. Vampires from different dimensions are even more effective, but mental contamination is also more severe. So if unable to control the contamination, they will become berserk vampires. starting to lose reason and go berserk, becoming abnormally obsessed with blood. So vampires were seen as the most dangerous beings in the world. Hearing Soranjin's accusation, Gamma scoffed, "You don't need to worry about that. Through our relentless research, we finally found a way to eliminate evil thoughts from blood, and you will become excellent materials. Because this magic circle isn't just for identifying vampire factors, it can also refine vampires into pills with no side effects." Seeing the pill taking shape, Minyoung said impatiently, "I took the risk of being caught. You should fulfill your promise now. Of course, here, this is what I promised to give you." Minyoung grabbed the thrown pill without hesitation and swallowed it in one gulp. Instantly, his pupils filled with blood, veins bulged all over his body, and he roared as bone spikes grew from within his body. Minyoung was excited, feeling his whole body full of power, but he wasn't satisfied yet and grabbed Soranjin, indicating he wanted more. Gamma said calmly, "Don't be impatient. I know you're quite excited from becoming stronger, but there are still customers waiting in line ahead." Just as Gamma looked smugly at Soranjin, Hardin suddenly stood up, the fear on his face long gone, revealing a bloodthirsty grin. "I didn't expect hunting different dimensional kin to have such amazing effects. I can't wait to devour you all." As he spoke, a crack opened at his feet. The Immortal King Hans teleported down with his minions. Minyoung had never seen undead and immediately felt intimidated. Gamma forced himself to stay calm, telling his subordinates not to panic and maintain formation. Soon the undead had charged close. Minyoung was forced to fight, but found these skeletons were completely useless, so he gained courage and roared, "Go to hell!" Watching the big guy charge at him, Hans remained calm. His staff lightly tapped. Sharp thorns immediately shot up from underground. Minyoung couldn't react in time, his body instantly pierced and pinned in midair. Hardin immediately pounced, biting the throat and beginning to suck greedily. Gamma's pupils shook in shock. What is that maniac doing? Is he trying to directly hunt his own kind? At this moment, Minyoung completely panicked. He could feel his blood draining madly but was powerless to struggle, finally becoming a dried corpse, while Hardin's mental contamination also increased as the other's blood contained various impure thoughts. Fortunately, the mind hub helped resist. Suddenly, Hardin's old fangs began to fall out, actually growing even sharper new teeth. It seemed different vampire factors were combining and evolving. Ding! Acquired special skill hybrid evolution. Physical abilities greatly enhanced. When obtaining other vampire factors, can plunder the opponent's abilities. Suddenly, Hardin's bones began creaking, and sharp bone spikes also grew from his arms. Not bad. He laughed with satisfaction. "I happen to need an organization to run errands for me. How about entrusting this job to the Blood Alliance? If anyone dares resist, they either become my food or join my undead legion." Of course, Hardin wasn't full yet. Naturally, he wouldn't let this group go. Ding! Acquired new skill Identify, can detect the opponent's physical condition and ability values. This ability is quite good. Hardin was excited. Now only Gamma was left. He screamed in terror, "What's happening? You clearly hunted your own kind, so why wasn't your mind contaminated?" "Oh, you really want to know? Then I'll generously tell you. Just don't listen to those voices echoing in your ears while sucking blood." Bullshit. Gamma didn't believe it and began struggling desperately. But the next second, intense pain hit, and he let out a miserable scream. Ding! Acquired new skill Shroud. At this moment, Gamma's face was withered and skin shriveled. With only his last breath left, Hardin directly performed soul searching. Discovering Gamma had a superior called Beta, and the Blood Alliance actually cooperated with Skybreakers, with this complex magic circle technology also provided by Skybreakers. After simply cleaning up the scene, Hardin drove away in Gamma's sports car. On the road, the unconscious Soranjin woke up. She thought she was still in danger and mistook Hardin for Gamma, immediately preparing to fight desperately. Fortunately, Hardin reacted quickly and shouted, "You've got the wrong person!" Only then did Soranjin see clearly it was the kidnapped vampire. She apologized repeatedly and asked what happened. Hardin didn't mind. "Do you know the Folk Mask? The mysterious person who recently destroyed the human trafficking group. He broke in and fought the vampires, so I took the opportunity to escape." Soranjin was immediately grateful. "I didn't expect you to save me in such a chaotic situation." Hardin thought carefully, feeling like he'd seen Soranjin somewhere before. He asked, "You're both Blood Alliance members, so why did you fight?" Soranjin sighed. "The Blood Alliance is now divided into hardliners and moderates, and the opposition is quite severe. I saw you being kidnapped earlier and brought trusted companions to rescue you. I just didn't expect the result." Soranjin darkened for a moment, but quickly pulled herself together. She believed that reporting what she saw today to the higher-ups would be their death sentence. Hardin thought it wouldn't be that simple. The hardliner leadership must also be involved. "By the way, Benefactor, you seem very capable. Which organization are you from?" Hardin interrupted. "Calling me that is too formal. Then I'll call you Big Brother. Whatever you like." Hardin briefly explained his situation. After listening, Soranjin smiled. "Why not join the Blood Alliance? The moderates wouldn't do such things, and we cooperate with the research center to provide stable blood bags." Hardin nodded. Soranjin reported work while leading the way. Soon they arrived at a suburban villa. As soon as they entered, a little girl happily rushed over. "Sister Soranjin, I heard everything. Are you okay?" Soranjin smiled and said, "Sister is so capable, of course I'm fine. Also, this is Big Brother Hardin who just joined the Blood Alliance. Say hello." Then the little girl went to play. Soranjin took Hardin to familiarize himself with the environment. He asked curiously while walking, "Is that little girl's actual age? You mean Nahui? She's not a return returner. Hardin looked puzzled. So, not all vampires are returners? Right, Nahui was born and raised on Earth. Her father was a returner who turned her into a vampire to save her from an incurable disease. Of course, he paid quite a price for it, because infecting someone as a vampire on Earth requires several times more power. Alright, this is your room. It's getting late, rest early. If you need anything, just call me. Soren Jin waved. But this made Hardin finally remember. That gesture. That voice. Your streamer, oh kid. Soren Jin didn't expect to be recognized and immediately blushed. That closing line from the stream came out too naturally. You didn't subscribe to me, did you? Hardin quickly waved his hand, saying he just occasionally came across it. That's good. Actually, I used to be an idol trainee, but after returning, I felt the competition was too fierce, so I started streaming. When did you awaken? Hardin continued asking. Soren Jin said, I awakened at 18, I'm 22 now. What about you, big brother? After hearing this, Hardin immediately broke out in cold sweat, saying he'd tell her next time, then quickly ran out of the room, leaving behind a confused girl. Hardin stood behind the door breathing heavily. He always thought Soren Jin was younger than him. Turns out she was 2 years older. The next day, Hardin was woken up early. He rushed downstairs in a hurry, thinking something major had happened, but just heard Soren Jin sigh. Yesterday my companion went to the scene but found everything had been burned down with no traces left. Now we can't investigate the hardliners. Hardin naturally wouldn't reveal that he did it and could only put on a very regretful expression. By the way, I have something to ask you. Do you know where the hardliners' headquarters is? Soren Jin was shocked. Why are you asking this? Hardin explained, I think those guys are too dangerous, so I want to stay away from them. Soren Jin suddenly realized, you're right, I'll help you mark their frequent haunts on the map right away. Soon. Soren Jin handed the phone back to Hardin. I'm going to make breakfast. Do you want some? Hardin quickly waved his hand, indicating, I just checked. There are many good restaurants nearby. Don't trouble yourself. Hardin couldn't help licking the corner of his mouth, because to advance his power further, he needed to hunt more of his own kind. The scene shifts to a French restaurant where several corpses lay, blood staining the floor, yet Hardin sat calmly among them. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, clearly having eaten his fill. Additionally, there was a dying vampire staring at him with hatred. Kid, do you think you can get away with this? Our boss will definitely hunt you down, and when that happens, you'll be nothing but bones. Hardin heard this and sneered mockingly. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Thanks to the shroud ability I plundered from you all, I set up a barrier when I arrived. No one outside can see what's happening inside. You'd better obediently tell me where your other companions are. Hardin directly activated Soul Search, and his face immediately lit up with joy, because the hardliners' upper echelon was actually meeting tomorrow. Perfect for catching them all at once. Hardin smiled wickedly, and a sanguine blossom condensed in his hand. This was also one of his newly acquired skills. He gently blew, and the petals scattered in the wind, instantly igniting fierce flames all around. These flames would continue burning until he allowed them to stop. Combined with the skill shroud that could mask magical traces, it was perfect for destroying evidence. This way, he didn't need to worry about being tracked. Hardin was about to leave, when suddenly his heart tightened. This feeling, it seems like my body is about to evolve again. As he spoke, Hardin's bones cracked throughout his body, veins bulging one by one. Ding, Bloodkin Pure Blood evolved to True Blood. Acquired skill bloodstream surge. Individual recovery rate has exceeded limits. Skill regeneration evolved to super regeneration. After the breakthrough, Hardin's appearance changed slightly, but what he cared most about was his newly acquired ability. He didn't hesitate to stab his wrist, instantly causing blood to gush out, but it quickly flowed back in, and even the wound healed without a trace. Hardin's face lit up with joy. With the Blood Clan's control over blood, plus super regeneration, it's practically invincible. As long as there's blood to absorb and recover during battle, wouldn't I essentially have an immortal body? Hardin couldn't help but fantasize. If true blood is this powerful, how strong must sacred blood be? Soon night fell, and Hardin, who had wandered around all day, finally returned. He had something to discuss with Soren Jin, but forgot to knock and just walked in. Unexpectedly, she was live streaming. Their eyes met. Soren Jin instantly turned red with embarrassment, frantically shutting off the live stream, then scolded Hardin harshly before calming down. Speak up, what's the matter? Actually, I received a letter addressed to you. Soren Jin took it and opened it, discovering it contained photos documenting the hardliners' crimes. She was both surprised and delighted, although she didn't know who sent this letter. This style of operation was very similar to the folk mask, but she didn't know him at all. Why would he help her? Just as Soren Jin felt puzzled, she inexplicably thought of Hardin. At this moment, Hans and Hardin had already arrived near the hardliners' headquarters. Learning they were meeting to discuss how to deal with him, he scoffed disdainfully. Perfect timing to catch them all at once. As he spoke, Hardin had already activated his identify skill. The villa was covered with an invisible barrier, but he ignored the obstruction. His gaze penetrating the barrier to see the interior, several figures sat around a long table, all quite powerful. Alright, let's begin the operation. Hans, hide in my shadow first. Hardin leaped down directly, crashing through the window, with a stylish landing. You villains, are you prepared? However, as soon as he spoke, he froze, because the hall was completely empty, not a single person. Just as Hardin was puzzled by this, suddenly there was a bang behind him. The air shattered like glass cracking open. A group of people filed out. Strange, the target was clearly the folk mask. How did some vampire we've never seen appear? Do any of you know this guy? Beta shook his head. It's an unfamiliar face, but his power looks to be at least level 7. Bailey chuckled softly. Just a newcomer who recently returned returned from another world. Seeing that the hardliners, leaders and officers were all present, Hardin wasn't surprised, but those two masked people behind made him wary. As he couldn't sense their aura at all, they were likely from the Skybreakers. The hardliner leader didn't want to waste time and directly ordered his capture. Also catch that guy hiding in the shadows. Hardin was slightly surprised that they had discovered this. Since that's the case, let's make this quick. Bloodstream surge activate. Hardin rushed toward the crowd swift as wind, and in the blink of an eye had severed a head. A pure-blood vampire cried out in shock, "Is that guy crazy? He's actually hunting his own kind." As soon as he spoke, suddenly a cold wind rose in the room, and an indifferent voice echoed in their ears. "Don't worry, you're next." Seeing eerie skeletons crawling up from the ground, that person was terrified and, ignoring orders, turned and ran. However, when he opened the door, a thick evil aura surged in. Hans slowly emerged from the darkness. "Don't think of escaping. I've already set up a barrier outside. The only way out is to have the guts to take us down." Hardin's blade rose and fell, and screams filled the scene. Watching his subordinates fall one by one, Beta couldn't sit still anymore, and immediately charged forward. "Kids, stop right there!" His speed was extremely fast, but he hadn't expected Hardin's claws could extend to 10 feet long. For a moment, he couldn't stop or dodge in time. Beta could only activate his ability, skin hardening. Instantly, white scales covered his entire body. Hardin's claws couldn't break through and shattered one by one. He said in surprise, "Your turtle shell is quite hard. Looks like I need to use more force." Hardin clenched his 5 fingers and threw a punch. With a bang, Beta's chest caved in directly. Beta's eyes widened. "My skin hardening has never lost in close combat. How could it be broken?" Beta crashed heavily to the ground, hastily calling for his subordinates to block the opponent. Hardin sneered, "No use struggling desperately. You'll all die eventually anyway." As he spoke, 2 blood snakes slithered out from Hardin's palms. Seeing his subordinates so easily defeated, Beta was both shocked and angry. "No good, this guy is too dangerous. I must take advantage of him being entangled to quickly finish him off." Beta roared and charged forward fiercely. In an instant, cold light flashed, and Hardin's left arm was severed in 2. However, he just sneered, "Useless. I can absorb blood to heal my wounds, and the more I absorb, the stronger I become. Now let me show you my newly acquired ability, invisibility." Hardin's figure instantly vanished. Beta was startled and still guarding the front. When his back suddenly erupted in severe pain, he was disemboweled by claws. Hardin materialized. "You can die now." Ding, collected new vampire factor, skill blood magic evolved to special skill sanguine miracle. Hardin's face was full of excitement as his control over abilities became much more fluid and natural. Bailey, who had been observing, seemed to realize something, and exclaimed, "No wonder you have so many strange abilities. You're actually a berserk vampire." Hardin was somewhat impatient. "Are you done talking? If so, hurry up and come die." Bailey was furious, but before he could charge forward, Hardin just gave him a look, and several blood vines burst from the ground, binding him tightly. Bailey struggled desperately but couldn't break free, which made him very indignant. "I can't believe I'm trapped by such a petty trick," Hardin said softly. "There's nothing you can do about being unconvinced. I'll send you to reunite with your companions right now." Seeing his 2 top generals defeated so easily, the hardliner leader finally panicked. "I didn't expect the folkmass to have such a powerful ally. Quick, sacrifice the orb and kill him." At his words, a mysterious figure stepped forward, holding a brilliantly golden orb in his hands. As he activated it, 5 light beams shot toward Hardin. However, Hardin didn't move a muscle, because Hans was already standing in front of him. He waved his sleeve, and the light beams instantly flew back. With a thud, the person controlling the orb couldn't react in time and was struck in the forehead, dying instantly. His companion showed terror, knowing there was no chance of victory and wanting to flee, but his movement was already detected by the hardliner leader. A flash of ruthlessness crossed his eyes as he struck out with his palm. "For the Skybreakers, you must stay behind." But the man quickly activated his ability and escaped. Looking at the staggering figure approaching, Hans squinted and sneered. "A suicide curse? You think such a petty trick can stop me? You're really underestimating people. Following such a disloyal captain, you can consider yourself unlucky. Let me help you find relief." Instantly, a demonic hand grabbed the man, and as Hans exerted force, with a bang, 2 cursed orbs flew out. At the same time, outside, the hardliner leader was gasping for breath. Because Hans's barrier was too strong, he had exhausted great effort to break open a gap and escape. But before he could catch his breath, a whistling sound came from behind. "I was planning to play a bit more, but I didn't expect this little mouse to almost get away." The hardliner leader's face turned pale, still thinking of finding a chance to escape, when suddenly severe pain struck his mind. He was shocked. "You actually want to peek into my memories?" Hans's mental power invaded bit by bit. Just as he was about to see information about the Skybreakers, suddenly his vision was blocked by a white light. Hans was stunned. He hadn't expected the Skybreakers to have means to prevent memory intrusion. A blinding white light flashed, and when vision returned to clarity, Hans found himself in a mental space. Suddenly, light laughter rang out. "The folk mask, you actually managed to get here. Quite impressive." Hans looked toward the sound and saw a figure with an unclear face sitting on a throne. Hans said solemnly, "I presume you're a minister of the Skybreakers?" "Correct," the figure admitted frankly. "By the way, The folk mask. Would you like to join forces with us? Hans didn't answer directly but asked instead, what is the Skybreaker's purpose? Very simple. The freedom of returnees. I want to create a world dominated by returnees. Hans frowned. For an organization that had only recently emerged, this goal seemed far too arrogant. The other party laughed upon hearing this. Who told you we just appeared? We've existed for a long time, always fighting for returnees' freedom. Hearing this, Hans instantly thought of something and couldn't help asking, you mean those terrorist attacks from before were all you're doing? He almost roared the last sentence. Ding, warning, Mind Hub is controlling emotions. However, the other party maintained that detached, mocking attitude. Does that matter? I still hope you can make a wise choice. In his rage, Hans punched toward the throne, but was easily blocked by an invisible barrier. Is this your choice? Very well. The figure's tone instantly turned cold. Then don't expect to leave here alive, because in the mental world, I am invincible. Hans showed no fear. You want to compete with willpower? You're really underestimating me. The scene shifts to the temple of the main god. After a period of arduous training, Harvey had completely transformed into a powerful warrior. Now he could easily lift an 80-pound stone statue with one hand, and had gained the divine blessing, mighty body. His sacred power had advanced by leaps and bounds, reaching high priest level, already qualifying him to become a holy knight. After training ended, Harvey decided to go out for some fresh air, walking while contemplating future goals. Walking through the garden, he saw a white figure crouching in the flowers, humming a song. It was the revered Saintess. Despite her noble status, she had no airs about her. Seeing Harvey pass by, Riesta greeted him warmly, her smile seeming to heal everything. Only the light she emanated was too dazzling, forcing Harvey to squint as he greeted her. Saintess, are you admiring the flowers? No, I'm catching ladybugs. Their colors are so bright and cute. I got so absorbed watching them I forgot the time. As she spoke, her gaze swept over Harvey, and she paused slightly, then praised sincerely, Harvey, congratulations on finally receiving divine blessing. Harvey quickly responded modestly with a smile, thinking to himself that she truly deserved to be the holy lady. She saw through him at a glance. At this moment, a long bell tolled. Riesta knew it was time for worship. She smiled and asked Harvey, would you like to go to the church together? Harvey immediately nodded in agreement. Having lived here for some time, Harvey finally understood why the Saintess harbored such deep obsession toward Hans. Because in the past, the first generation Immortal King had turned half the continent into a land of death, although they eventually gathered the power of the entire world to defeat him. The Immortal King's heart was seized by his trusted Dark Mage, who proclaimed himself the second-generation Immortal King, bringing catastrophic disaster to the Western continent. Though the heart was ultimately destroyed by a knight chosen by the main god, it split into 3 fragments scattered across the continent, becoming an eternal threat. Every time the Immortal King caused disasters, the main god's church always charged to the front lines. As a saintess, she understood better than anyone the tragic sacrifices involved. She treasured every believer like family. Therefore, Riesta's intense hostility toward the Immortal King was completely natural. However, she wouldn't need to do that in the future, because Hans was actually a very kind person. Harvey smiled slightly. Now let me focus my mental power on Hans. Soon night fell. In the Skybreaker's branch building, a mad, furious roar rang out. How could I possibly lose? Especially in a mental power contest. The Skybreaker's minister couldn't figure out how. Despite clearly having the upper hand at first, the opponent's mental power suddenly increased several times over, as if combining the strength of several people, leaving him completely outmatched and utterly defeated in the blink of an eye. The Skybreaker's minister clenched his fists in defiance, but he quickly calmed down, knowing this wasn't the time for frustration. He immediately ordered his subordinates, issue a special grade command below, immediately halt all plans and destroy intelligence, hiding all traces. Also notify the president and tell him a monster has appeared in K country. At this time, Hans was still in the mental space, looking at the pile of wreckage before him with some regret. I couldn't interrogate anything before that guy escaped. Suddenly there was a ding sound. Individual seized another's fortune. Skill black magic advanced to special skill path of the mage. Hans was stunned. Seizing another's fortune, does that mean I defeated the opponent? Additionally, with the skill upgrade, Hans's understanding and knowledge of magic reached a new height. Only then did he realize that these wreckage pieces were mental fragments from which some memories could be extracted. Hans's face immediately lit up with joy, and he quickly activated secret arts. After a moment's effort, he finally found the location of the Skybreaker's K country branch. It was actually in the deep mountains. He immediately transformed into a black shadow and sped away. Soon the Skybreaker's branch was in chaos, because they had just received the special grade command and were terminating all plans to prepare for evacuation. But unexpectedly, the enemy had already reached their door so quickly, and it was just one person, yet his power was monstrous. Seeing people holding documents one by one, Hans sneered, so eager to destroy evidence. Let me take a good look at exactly how many heinous crimes you've committed. Hans snatched the files. The more he read, the angrier he became, and the demonic aura around him trembled violently, beyond control. Finally, he could no longer suppress it and said word by word, Skybreakers, you ruined my life. Today I will slaughter you all, leaving none alive, to resolve the hatred in my heart. It turned out that the terrorist attack that cost him his legs and family, which Song Yun Han had thought was an accident, was actually orchestrated by the Skybreakers. Though Song Yun-han was furious beyond measure, he also knew the Skybreakers were far more complex than they appeared. To overthrow them, he needed to build up his forces. The fastest method depended on Hardin, because he had gained a heaven-defying skill that could refine his own blood into blood essence and implant it into other vampires to strengthen their vampire factors. Not only would subordinates recruited this way gain tremendous power, if they dared betray him, their life and death would be in his single thought. Subsequently, Hardin began the first phase of his plan. He first found Soren Jin, confessed that the hardliners' destruction was his doing, and proposed meeting her leader. After hearing this, Soren Jin looked incredulous and said she needed to report to higher-ups for confirmation. Hardin interrupted. "No need for such trouble. I'll prove it to you right now." His aura erupted around him, magnificent blood energy surging like tremendous waves. Soren Jin was immediately shocked. She knew Hardin was powerful, but hadn't expected him to be this strong. His power had nearly reached level 8. After a long while, Hardin finally met the leader of the Blood Alliance's moderate faction. Unexpectedly, it was a woman. "Mr. Hardin, truly a young hero. Not only did you single-handedly sweep away the hardliners, now you even want to subdue all the hardliner remnants." Hearing the implications in her words, Hardin didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "My purpose is simply to maintain peace and order and eliminate all those connected to the Skybreakers." Seeing the other party remain silent, seemingly considering something, Hardin thought to himself that indeed it wouldn't be so easy to agree. He was already prepared to be refused and ready to resort to force directly. When the other party suddenly agreed, Hardin couldn't help but ask curiously, "What did you base your decision on to agree so quickly?" "Of course, confidence in myself. I'll help you recover the hardliners." The moderate faction leader smiled slightly. "Soren, from now on you'll assist Mr. Hardin and serve as a bridge between us." Suddenly being called upon, Soren Jin looked completely bewildered. While this suited Hardin perfectly. "Alright, now we should discuss how you want to recover the hardliners in the newly formed neutral faction." After an hour of conversation, it finally ended. Back at their residence, Hardin looked at the anxious Soren Jin and asked, "Are you ready?" She took a deep breath and nodded firmly with determined eyes. "Yes." "Then don't move." Hardin flicked his finger, and instantly a blood essence drilled into her body. Soren Jin's pupils dilated dramatically. She could feel the refined blood essence entering her body, her blood beginning to boil continuously, her muscles and bones undergoing transformation. Her entire body felt reborn. Soren Jin was overjoyed. Her power had increased by a full 30%. Hardin nodded slightly, roughly understanding the enhancement level of refined blood essence, and Soren Jin also recovered from her excitement. "Monarch, what should we do next?" Hardin was startled. "Why are you calling me that?" "Because now you've essentially created a new faction, so naturally you need a resounding title." Hardin suddenly realized, "Oh right, I'm the boss now. What name should I choose?" Hardin pondered. "I can grow stronger by hunting my own kind, so my vampire factors are quite complex, and vampires who absorb refined blood essence will also be influenced by me and mutate. Then we'll call ourselves the Heterosis from now on." Hardin made the final decision, laughing wickedly. "Hardliner remnants, you guys just wait for me. I'll train you to be the most loyal dogs. Those who resist will die." 3 days had passed since Hardin established his faction. Although progress was smooth, Song Yun-han still felt it was far from enough. After all, the Skybreakers were a global organization. To overthrow them, he needed to rapidly increase his power, so obtaining karma was crucial. But this required causing massive impact in another world, such as war or terrorist attacks. However, Song Yun-han immediately rejected these ideas, because he would never do anything that harmed innocents, so he had no good strategy for the moment. But while organizing his things, Song Yun-han found a comic book. Its contents deeply inspired him, and a bold plan instantly formed. He would play a grand game of chess. First, let Hans play the evil demon king threatening humanity and gather corrupt nobles to form an evil force. Then let Harvey take the stage, punish the evil organization, and become a people's hero. This way, he could both eliminate parasites and gain karma, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Song Yun-han's face lit up with wild joy. "Harley, it's your turn to take the stage." This was Song Yun-han's 4th avatar, unique perk, adaptability. He had been summoned a month ago, but they couldn't find a good way to maximize his abilities. So Song Yun-han let him stay home to train his physique. But now the time has come, because Hans discovered a laboratory beneath the Skybreakers branch, filled with experimental subjects. They seemed to be attempting to graft demon bodies onto humans. However, Hans wasn't interested in that. His goal for this mission was singular, to obtain dragon blood, because Harry's trait is adaptability. This means his abilities in all aspects far exceed those of ordinary people. So if Harry could fuse with dragon blood and acquire the powerful genes of the dragon race, he would surely become the strongest human life form. Hans then moved the entire laboratory into another world. He placed it deep in the mountains and forests, setting up multiple barriers around it, but unexpectedly, the Saintess still vaguely sensed it. Under the gloomy sky, continuous drizzle fell, yet Riesta seemed oblivious as she gazed into the distance. Seeing this, Harvey hurriedly came over with an umbrella. "Saintess, do you have some great worry?" Seeing Harvey, Riesta shook her head. "It's nothing particularly special. I just feel like something big is going to happen recently. My chest feels blocked and stuffy." Harvey was stunned for a moment before speaking to console her. "If you keep getting rained on like this, you'll catch cold. Let's go back." Hearing this, Riesta hummed in agreement. Meanwhile, Hans's experiment was also proceeding in secret. A week passed in the blink of an eye, and Harvey finally reached the day of his appointment. The Archbishop stood before the divine statue and loudly questioned, "Harvey, are you willing to become a paladin of the divine order and protect those innocent people?" Harvey replied resolutely, "I am willing. Good. Then from today forth, I hereby appoint you as a paladin of the divine order." Ding. Individual has gained enlightenment, acquired special skill, leaped the moment the cross necklace was placed on him. A dazzling holy light suddenly burst forth to bestow a blessing during the appointment ceremony. This is the favor and protection of the Lord God. At this moment, Harvey could clearly sense, just like during the last baptism, that God was watching him. The gaze lingered for quite some time, which puzzled him somewhat. Could it be that God has discovered I'm not from this world? Whatever, never mind that. Let me check the blessing first. Harvey opened his system panel and found that the leap skill could traverse space, equivalent to teleportation, and there were no restrictions on usage frequency or distance, meaning as long as his divine power was sufficient, he could use it infinitely. Harvey was overjoyed. Truly worthy of God to grant me such an overpowered ability, so generous. He immediately knelt respectfully to express his deep gratitude. His devout posture also infected the surrounding believers. What an honest young man. I wonder which Knight Order he'll choose to join. At this time, several figures had been waiting outside. Seeing Harvey emerge, one congratulated him. "Harvey, congratulations. Next you'll be doing internships with various Knight Orders. These are representatives from their respective orders here to invite you. Each Knight Order has different primary weapons and specialties. Please choose carefully." Then a man with flowing hair stepped forward first. "Harvey, pleased to meet you. I'm a member of the Azure Sky Knights. We specialize in spear techniques and are responsible for city wall defense." And the second person introduced himself. "I'm a member of the Sun King Knights. We serve as vanguard in battle with high damage greatswords as our primary weapons." Finally, a red-haired man said, "I'm from the Thunderclaw Knights. We specialize in balanced sword and shield techniques, responsible for city patrols and guard duty." After all three finished their introductions, they showed expectant expressions. But Harvey's words were shocking. He actually said he wanted to receive training from all the Knight Orders simultaneously. But this wasn't out of arrogance, rather. Harvey believed that with the enhancement of his traits and characteristics, he could quickly master all the martial arts of the paladins. Suddenly, his peripheral vision shifted and he asked curiously, "Isn't that person from a Knight Order? Why hasn't she said a word?" Hearing this, the others' expressions immediately changed slightly, just as they were about to explain. The woman spoke first, "Because our Knight Order only accepts the elite of the elite." Her sharp gaze swept over Harvey. "Your strength isn't bad. Your divine power ranks among the top even at the high priest level. If you're curious, follow me." Harvey frowned slightly but still followed. On the way, the woman revealed some information, saying their Knight Order was responsible for guarding the most important positions in the Divine Temple. Soon, after walking for about 10 minutes, the two entered a stone chamber with a skeleton statue holding a scythe and someone sitting at a desk below. Harvey looked carefully and his expression changed. That cloak and mask belonged to a heretical inquisitor. Behind him, the woman spoke calmly, "Our Knight Order's evaluation standard is simple. Just clearly recite the text on the divine statue." Cold sweat broke out on Harvey's forehead. "Damn, this isn't a trap, is it? What if my identity is exposed?" He feigned displeasure. "What do you mean? Are you questioning my faith in God?" The woman frowned slightly. "This is just a procedure. Do you have some reason why you can't recite it?" Harvey bit his teeth helplessly and decided to go all out. Otherwise, continued delay would surely arouse suspicion. So he began reading from the scroll. A moment later, the statue's eyes burst forth with golden light. Instantly, with a sizzling sound, a brand was carved onto Harvey's tongue. The pain made him grimace. The Inquisitor glanced over and finally spoke a sentence. "You may go back now." Harvey breathed a sigh of relief and left the stone chamber, unable to help asking, "Were you worried about leaking secrets just now, so you placed a restriction on me?" Hearing this, the woman couldn't help but smile. "How can you call that a restriction? It's clearly a blessing of silence." Harvey rolled his eyes, thinking to himself, "Like hell I believe you." Then they came to another secret chamber. Two armored paladins stood guard solemnly. The woman's expression instantly became extremely serious. "Listen well, we are the Radiant Knights. Our mission is to risk our lives guarding the underground chamber of the Divine Temple. Open your eyes wide and see clearly. This will be your first and last time witnessing with your own eyes what we're truly guarding." As the heavy stone door slowly opened, an evil aura that made one's heart palpitate spread out. Harvey was shocked on the spot. He finally understood why the Order placed its most important forces in the Divine Temple, and why they imposed the blessing of silence on those who entered and left. The reason was that this place sealed the final fragment of the Immortal King. Although Harvey desperately wanted to retrieve that fragment immediately. There were 4 Knight Orders guarding the Divine Temple alone, and even with Hans's strength, accomplishing this would be extremely difficult. Therefore, Harvey decided to take a long-term approach. Upon unexpectedly learning the location of the last fragment, Hans was thrilled. But at this moment, he had no time to care about these matters, because Harry's surgery was proving far more unstable than expected. Hans felt confused. Theoretically speaking, his operation had been flawless, so what exactly had gone wrong? So he decided to adjust the injection intensity. The moment Harry's body received more dragon blood, he let out a painful howl. Hans realized realized that Harry's super recovery skill had reached its limit. If this continued, he might lose both Harry and the entire research project. So he decided to take a gamble and inject all the remaining dragon blood. Enduring this fierce impact, Harry roared madly, red light blazing intensely in his eyes. After the red light flared to its peak, Harry instantly fell silent. Hans understood the experiment had failed. He softly said sorry to Harry, then turned to leave. Suddenly, a skill panel appeared before him. System notification, inherent skill growth, the number of avatars that can be possessed has increased. Then, sounds came from behind. Harry, who should have been dead, miraculously awakened. Not only that, he had also gained the special skill physical mutation, his skill super recovery evolved into regeneration, and his skill adaptation evolved into the special skill sudden mutation. After breaking free from his chains, he rubbed his shoulders and murmured, "Is it because of the effect of sudden mutation? It feels like I've become a new species." While recording the results, Hans said there was more to celebrate than just this. This increase in avatars wasn't achieved through the Karma Shop's power, but through natural growth. This was an unprecedented breakthrough. Harry chuckled lightly and said, "Shall I try out my abilities first?" Afterward, he came to the forest, breathing in the fresh air of nature with contentment. Based on sudden mutation, all 5 of his senses had become more acute. He could even clearly hear the faint breathing of the beast that had set its sights on him. When he got a clear look at the beast attacking him, he discovered it was the very species he had encountered when he first arrived in this other world. He grabbed the panther by the neck and slammed it hard into the ground, then ended its life. He cut open the panther's body and searched around, finally finding the magic stone that served as the monster's core. He swallowed the magic stone like a snack. At the same time, the system prompted, through repeated behavior, the individual has gained enlightenment. This was precisely his purpose. He wanted to use sudden mutation to make his personal combat style more distinct. After devouring the magic stone, he suddenly realized he had grown to 2 meters in height and gained the skill glutton, can quickly and easily digest any food, greatly increasing appetite. After acquiring the skill, he suddenly felt ravenously hungry and immediately tore off a piece of panther meat. He found the raw meat sweet and the blood refreshing. The corners of his mouth curled up uncontrollably, his heart surging with excitement. He felt his current behavior was no different from that of a barbarian. Then he recalled that in the southern part of the continent, there was a barbarian tribal alliance. So he set off for the Earl's territory of Tarak in the Turk Kingdom. Amidst the strange looks and murmurs of the crowd, he walked into the Navigator's Guild, seeing the tall, muscular man before them with his bare chest. The staff members were so intimidated they could only speak in hushed whispers. Harry dressed this way because he wanted to become a hero capable of shaking the continent, so first impressions were crucial. When a staff member forced down their fear to ask what business he had, he slammed the table, declaring he had come to defeat the monsters in the northern mountains near the Steel Fortress. The staff member didn't dare refuse and immediately said they would take him to board a ship. On the other side, at the territory of the Divine Order, Harvey defeated the last defender, successfully mastering all the Night Order's martial arts and thus gaining the skill Comprehensive Weapon Arts. This skill not only allowed him to wield weapons more perfectly, but also greatly benefited his other avatars. At this moment, he saw the Saintess Riesta crouching by a flower bed, casting divine power on something in the bushes. He curiously leaned over to see what she was doing, but Riesta pointed at an earthworm struggling to emerge from the soil, saying she was using divine power to cheer them on. Harvey couldn't help but think, will it later mutate into a giant earthworm like in science fiction movies? He then asked Riesta, "I see you're wearing ceremonial robes. Is there some ritual?" Riesta nodded and happily replied, "A guest who can track the Immortal King is about to arrive?" Harvey asked curiously, "Just what kind of distinguished guest?" While thinking, does this person have a way to track Hans who has set up a double barrier? Riesta said it was hard to explain, but if he was interested, he could participate in the ceremony as a guardian knight. Harvey didn't expect such good fortune and immediately agreed. Inside the temple, as the knight reported, several people in green robes slowly walked in. The leader had silver white hair and pointed ears. It was none other than the High Elf of the Elven Kingdom, Rapori Grandwood. At the same time, in a certain shop, the owner's expression was impatient, unable to resist urging aloud, only because the shop's sole customer had been there for 2 hours without buying a single item. The man said his knowledge was shallow, so he was looking rather slowly. He had the exact same appearance as Han Sung-hyun. This was his 5th avatar, Hubert. His initial skill appraisal was an ability to see item information, although his proficiency was currently too low to see more than simple information. As long as he persisted in developing the skill, he could become a merchant who dominated the entire continent. But before that, he had to guard against the resistance of existing merchants. Therefore, he must make Harry more heroic in presence and influence. On the other side, in the northern mountains, snow was falling heavily. Harry finally saw the legendary giant bear that had been disturbing the peace of this area. The moment it saw a living person appear, the giant bear roared and lunged at Harry with its claws. Harry grabbed his axe and deftly blocked the giant bear's attack, then slashed its right paw. Seizing this opening, he raised his axe high and leaped up, striking down fiercely at the giant bear's head. Unexpectedly, the giant bear's head was hard as steel, and the axe shattered instantly. The next second, Harry was sent flying by a slap from the giant bear, facing the giant bear's renewed assault. Harry immediately activated physical mutation, his right arm rapidly covered with incredibly hard dragon scales. He landed a punch on the giant bear's jaw. The force of the punch sent it flying several meters, but he felt no joy, because he had used the power of a monster and couldn't be praised as a hero. Therefore, he had to figure out a method to invoke the biological power of monsters without transforming his body. He made the dragon scale state of his right arm recede, returning to human form, then concentrated his mind, trying to imagine not transforming, but simply enhancing energy. Unexpectedly, this attempt led him to comprehend the special skill biological aura. His left arm instantly ignited with dragon flame power, yet his skin showed no change. Just as he was marveling that he finally had an ability befitting a human, a blue behemoth suddenly appeared behind him. It was was an ogre from the northern mountains, raising its giant foot to stomp Harry to death. Harry decided to use this opportunity to test his new ability. When the ogre's foot came down on him, the ogre let out a smug laugh. The next second, it showed astonishment. Harry had actually withstood its giant foot attack. At this moment, golden dragon power swirled around his entire body. His body brimming with strength, he forcefully pushed upward. Escaping from under the ogre's foot, he soared into the air, grabbing his iron axe and flying toward it. With lightning-fast strikes, he slew the ogre, then landed steadily, raising his axe high like a victor. Harry shouted excitedly, "I can become a hero too!" Suddenly, he smelled a familiar and nauseating odor. He realized the smell was coming from deep in the snowy forest, so he followed the scent to its source. Looking at the dark purple fog before him, he immediately recognized it as the Vow of the Abyss. Though he didn't know their purpose for being here, they were definitely up to no good. Intent on becoming a hero, he immediately decided to eliminate this evil force, so he charged like a cannonball into that dark purple fog. At the same time, inside the temple, Rapori was relaxed, but Harvey, silently observing him, felt things had become tricky. He mentally reviewed the information about the Elven Kingdom. The Elven Kingdom was a nation built by elves who believed in the World Tree. Although they worshipped different deities, the Divine Order and the Elven Kingdom respected each other and maintained stable exchanges. After all, acknowledging the existence of others and determining the object of faith were two different matters. Furthermore, high elves held lofty status, and Rapori's arrival meant the elves wanted to borrow the World Tree's power to find Hans. However, as he was thinking, Harvey's attention fell on Rapori's pupils. The next second, Rapori said, "You seem to find my pupils quite magical." Harvey's heart jumped, thinking his secret glance had been discovered. Unexpectedly, Riesta smiled apologetically, and he realized Rapori was speaking to the Saintess. Rapori pointed to his pupils that represented a high elf and said it was fine. He wanted to talk about pupils anyway. He said, "Elves with these eyes were responsible for serving as the high priest connecting the World Tree and the elves, and there were very few elves with this compatibility to begin with. At most 2 or 3 were born in an era, and with the recent increase in elderly members, they all eagerly anticipated the birth of new high elves." Hearing this, Riesta asked, "You mentioned there was an urgent matter requiring assistance. Is it related to what you just mentioned?" Rapori said yes, and explained that a qualified child had fallen into the hands of slave hunters and been sold as a sacrifice to dark mages. He wanted to ask the Divine Order to help find that child, so Riesta asked if he had any relevant clues. Rapori said the child had been taken somewhere in the northern mountains, and described her clothing and appearance. Her outward appearance still looks like an ordinary elf who hasn't awakened yet. She appears to be about 15 years old, with light green hair and amber pupils. Harvey, who could share senses with Harry, looked at the elf girl in the underground cavern who matched the intelligence 100%, and immediately felt something was amiss. At the same time, Harry asked the green-haired girl, "Little one, what's your name?" The girl replied, "My name is Sahiri." Harry naturally rescued the girl. Carrying her on his back, he fought his way through, and arrived at the storeroom she had mentioned. Seeing the girl dizzy and disoriented, he quickly roused her and asked what exactly she was looking for. She pointed to a branch on the table nearby, telling him it was a branch from the World Tree. He grabbed the branch and handed it to her, then rushed forward, carrying her as he escaped the underground cavern. On this side, Harvey informed Rapori of discovering Sahiri. Upon hearing this, Rapori was surprised and asked if he could track specific individuals. Harvey denied this, using sensing their presence as an excuse to answer the question. A knight accompanying them was about to rebuke him for this vague explanation, but was stopped by Riesta. Riesta believed Harvey's explanation and asked him to describe it in more detail. Meanwhile, after some searching, Harry finally found the exit. A dark mage, seeing this, hurriedly told his companion to notify that guy. The companion immediately took out a whistle and blew it. With a tremendous roar, a giant earthworm burst out from underground. Seeing this, Harry had no choice but to attempt to break through with force. He charged with all his might to the top of the earthworm's head and kicked its body hard. The earthworm immediately opened its bloody maw angrily toward him. Harry caught a glimpse of the dark magic circle inside the earthworm's mouth and understood it had been controlled by the Vow of the Abyss. He decided to display heroic spirit and save this corrupted earthworm. He grabbed the earthworm's fangs, gathering all his body's strength. He forcefully flung the earthworm's body into the forest, then said like a caring big brother, "Don't get caught again in the future, live a long life." However, just after dealing with the earthworm, a pack of magic wolves arrived. He couldn't help but think, what are those the Vow of the Abyss guys planning again? But to him it made no difference. He just needed to eliminate them all. From above, a group of dark mages were watching Harry, and the leading the Vow of the Abyss elder Narabe asked, "Who exactly is he? Tomorrow we could have offered the High Elf and World Tree branch as sacrifices. We used sealing tools to hide our location. How did he find this place? But this is as far as it goes." He believed Harry couldn't possibly deal with such a vast number of monsters, so when a magic wolf bit Harry's arm, Narabe thought he was finished. Unexpectedly, Harry's arm instantly transformed into dragon scales, and the magic wolf's teeth immediately shattered. Next, Harry pulled out his iron axe and finished off the magic wolf with one swing, taking out the magic stone from its body. Right in front of Sahiri, he swallowed it whole. After eating the magic stone, Harry's muscles instantly bulged, veins protruding, his entire body surging with tremendous power. The next second, his face transformed into a wolf's head. Though he struggled to control his consciousness, his body began moving on its own, unconsciously blocking attacks, uncontrollably devouring the wolf pack. As he continuously let out fierce wolf howls, he comprehended the new skill wildness. Watching Harry's frenzied slaughter, Nurabe exclaimed in shock, "How is this possible? He's basically a monster!" Then he hurriedly ordered all summoning circles to be activated. This disrupted the Vow of the Abyss's original plan, but things had come to this, they had no choice. Nurabe's eyes gleamed coldly as he said, "Release those two." On this side, after a bout of slaughter, the magic wolves were trembling with fear before this man who seemed human, yet wasn't. Just as Harry was about to finish off the last magic wolf, a sharp arrow pierced through his left arm. Harry was shocked, then discovered this arrow was actually made of crystal. He whipped his head around to see a monster continuously firing crystal arrows at him. That monster's entire body was composed of gems, and Harry could even sense powerful telekinetic force from it. However, it wasn't his only opponent. A creature entirely crimson red descended from the sky, landing directly on his face. This monster had fierce eyes and fangs, twin red pupils, a pair of thick horns on its head, massive wings spread behind it, clearly a demon descended from hell. Harry wasn't knocked down, although the opponent was massive in size. When it came to comparing strength, he had no fear. However, the next second, he was pierced through the body by another crystal arrow, then took another demon punch to the face. The demon wielded a flaming sword and slashed down at Harry, chanting, "This is the end," but Harry sneered contemptuously and said, "You're exactly right." The next second, golden light suddenly appeared in the sky. A divine power descended straight down. Looking at the man who appeared before him, Harry snorted proudly and said, "Just in time." Harvey appeared here because of a joint decision by Riesta and Rapori. Facing the accompanying knight's doubts, Riesta chose to trust Harvey. Rapori, anxious to find someone, also said that even if it was just intuition, it didn't matter. As long as Sahiri could be found, whatever judgment Harvey made, he was willing to follow. Therefore, Harvey descended here at this moment and engaged in fierce battle with the demon. He infused divine power into his longsword and swung forcefully at the demon. The demon was immediately split in two and died on the spot. Seeing its companion fall, the gem person panicked somewhat. Harry suddenly appeared, swinging his fist at it. The gem person blocked the attack with arrows. Then gripping the sharp arrowhead, it struck at Harry with a heavy punch at extreme speed, even inserting an arrow into Harry's left eye. Harry endured the pain and grabbed the gem person's head with his other hand, touching the third eye on its forehead, then forcefully pried it out, tearing that gem eye right out. Losing its gem eye, the gem person's head instantly became fragile and was crushed by Harry. Harry pulled the arrow from his left eye and placed the gem eye into his eye socket to replace the damaged eyeball. The moment he placed it, the system notification sounded, transplanted a new body part. Gained skill, gem eye, telekinesis. His eyes flashed with blue light as he said excitedly, "Now I can perform ranged attacks." Seeing both the demon and gem person had fallen, the dark mages asked Nurabe what to do next. Nurabe told everyone to stay calm for now, then ordered the release of the remaining monsters and a retreat. As soon as he finished speaking, a dark mage was struck in the face by a meteor hammer. Next, the paladin order appeared, blocking the dark mage's escape route. Seeing this, Nurabe secretly cast dark magic, absorbing the souls of his subordinates as sacrifices, to summon the grand demon. With deep chanting, netherfire ignited in the magic circle. A giant demon, entirely crimson with 6 horns, slowly crawled out from the circle. However, just as Nurabe summoned the grand demon, he noticed brilliant golden light from above. A huge golden magic circle appeared above the grand demon's head, and golden power suddenly emerged from it, piercing straight through the demon's heart. The one who activated this divine circle was none other than the Paladin Order's Archbishop Lasius. As Nurabe was completely eliminated by the golden light, all the Vow of the Abyss combat forces present were also completely cleared out. So Harry called out to Sahiri, who was hiding nearby. Rapori and Tuscan also appeared at the right moment. Rapori quickly came before Sahiri. He knelt on one knee and gave a brief self-introduction. Before Sahiri could respond, Harry had already called out congratulations that she had finally found her people. Sahiri smiled and asked him to sit down, then gently placed a kiss on his forehead. This was a sacred blessing exclusive to high elves. A 3-leaf mark appeared prominently on Harry's forehead, and he immediately sensed the aura of the world tree. Rapori explained, "This blessing originates from nature, is of high level, and has limited uses." He took Harry's hand and made a covenant mark with him, saying that if help was needed, the elves would do their utmost to assist. Finally, Sahiri gifted the world tree branch to Harry. Looking at the powerful Harry, Tuscan asked Harvey if he knew Harry, and Harvey said he didn't. So Tuscan said the Divine Order should also express gratitude to Harry. Having gained goodwill from both the elves and the Divine Order, Harvey was secretly delighted. Now all that remained was helping Hubert become a unique merchant. At this time, Rapori approached Tuscan, saying it was time for the elves to return the favor. Tuscan said the Divine Order's only wish was to find the Immortal King and maintain continental peace. Harvey, listening nearby, thought, it's finally come to this. Because the world tree was the origin of all trees. High elves could borrow its power to perceive all places where the aura of trees existed. Rapori naturally agreed to this request, but said the perception required one medium. That was the aura of the Immortal King. So everyone came to the temple's basement. Walking in the corridor, Harvey thought, even looking at it again, I still think this holy barrier is extraordinarily powerful. So powerful that I cannot control it. Even when bringing outsiders in, they would deliberately take detours, as if navigating a maze. Even if Hans wanted to destroy this barrier, it would take a tremendous amount of time. Even if he somehow managed to break in here, he would be surrounded by all the holy knights and high priests in the temple. Moreover, that high elf was about to track Hans. Seeing the legendary Immortal King fragment, Rapori let out an exclamation, then prepared to use the world tree's power to track the Immortal Immortal King's aura. At this critical moment, Harvey finally thought of a solution. He planned to seize the last Immortal King fragment, while all the elites went out to pursue Hans. On the other side, in the Vow of the Abyss executive conference room, the leader asked if all responsible persons had arrived on time. The Empire's representative and the Eastern representative had both arrived. Only Nurabe was unable to attend due to his death. During the meeting, someone pointed out they had already lost two great generals, Malcolm and Nurabe. All of this was because the Immortal King's descendant appeared, boosting the morale of the church. Someone suggested they could utilize this Immortal King descendant, but was opposed by others. It was precisely the Immortal King's descendant who had pushed the Vow of the Abyss into dire straits. Listening to his subordinates' arguments, the leader couldn't help but chuckle secretly, murmuring softly, "How interesting." On the other side, after observing the Saintess Riesta's phantom outside the cave from the shadows, Hans looked at the fragment in his hand and thought, "It seems the Saintess found my location by tracking the fragment. In that case, I just need to hide the fragment." Thinking this, he attempted to place the fragment in the subspace he had created, but the fragment bounced out, and he immediately realized the fragment seemed unable to enter ordinary subspaces. However, he could take the fragment back to Earth, so he decided to open a subspace within his body and carry the fragment with him. After some attempts, he finally merged with the fragment as one. Magical power surged throughout his body, perfectly absorbing the fragment's power while also completely concealing its traces. Having resolved the fragment matter, only the evidence-laden scene remained, so he directly set a fire to burn everything to ashes. After destroying all evidence, he released all barriers. Coming to the cliff, he spread his own aura across the entire continent, intentionally luring the Divine Order to come pursue him. His ostentatious actions were naturally captured by Rapori's tracking. In the underground temple, Rapori said, found his traces in the monster forest on the western side of the continent. Latius immediately ordered the mobilization of all holy knights and available archbishops. At this moment, a red-haired holy knight suddenly appeared, expressing hope to participate in the operation and lend the Divine Order a hand. Seeing the newcomer, Latius was inwardly delighted. "It's actually Cardinal Pire. This expedition force is all elite." At this time, Riesta also requested to participate in the operation, but was refused by Latius, because the Saintess was the pillar of the Divine Order and must guard the headquarters. Afterward, Latius also instructed Harvey to remain in the temple to protect the Saintess. He leaned close to Harvey's ear and said softly, "If anything happens while I'm away, I'm entrusting the Saintess to you," then led the team away. Latius's instructions were exactly what Harvey wanted, and he couldn't help but smile inwardly. "Don't worry, I will definitely protect her well." At dusk, Hans came to the outside of the temple. Because his dark magic maintained vigilance over the surroundings, he could clearly sense that every wall of the temple was covered with barriers. Even if he used skills to infiltrate this place, there were layers of barriers blocking the interior. Therefore, he decided to completely confuse their position and buy time. Then, he launched dark magic into the air. The dark magic exploded like fireworks, blooming with dark purple light in the sky. The gate guards naturally noticed this commotion. Next, they detected unusual activity outside the temple. What surged forth densely was not humans but undead creatures. On the other side, when the expedition force arrived at their destination, night had already fallen. After an arduous search, they found nothing. Regarding this, Rapori was very confused. If the opponent moved position, the World Tree should have informed him. Suddenly, Latius sensed something amiss. What if the opponent had already detected being tracked and set a trap for this? He immediately felt something was wrong and ordered a return to the Great Temple, asserting this was all a ploy by the Immortal King's descendant. At the same time, after intense combat, Hans finally broke into the inner sanctum and saw the last Immortal King fragment. He immediately summoned the undead army and murmured, "It's time to resurrect Immortal King." As alarm bells rang urgently, the soldiers stationed at the temple swarmed out, rushing toward the underground temple. Watching the hurried soldiers, Harvey thought, "Since my task is to guard the temple, I'll stay here on standby, then look for an opportunity to infiltrate the temple." Next, he discovered there were far more soldiers than expected, even some Night Order members he had never seen before. But it didn't matter anyway. They hadn't yet detected that Hans had already broken into the temple's depths, and dealing with the undead outside the city was enough to overwhelm them. However, the phantom of the Heresy Inquisitor suddenly appeared, claiming the undead outside the city were merely a distraction. The Immortal King's descendant had already reached the temple's depths and ordered everyone to head to the sealing chamber. Now Harvey panicked. He hadn't anticipated the Heresy Inquisitor would identify the anomaly so quickly. He had to find a way to interfere with the Night Order's actions before the situation worsened. Deep in the temple, Riesta also rushed here with the knights. Learning that the Immortal King was so close yet she had no awareness of it, she immediately panicked and blamed herself for lacking ability. Thinking that the Immortal King might resurrect, she was so frightened tears welled in her eyes. Harvey appeared at the right time, saying he was willing to take the lead. His arrival was like a lifeline for Riesta, and she immediately showed a grateful smile. Inside the underground temple, looking at the disastrous battle situation, Hans was somewhat surprised internally to have lost so many undead troops. Looking at the unconscious Heresy Inquisitor, he thought, this person's strength is more troublesome than expected. Even the elite leader Malcolm had already fallen. He collected Malcolm into his subspace to let him rest temporarily. Then, he slowly approached the last fragment, opening his body to it. The fragment began to shake violently. The power of the Immortal King contained within poured out and surged into Hans's body. But Hans didn't feel empowered. sword. Instead, he sensed this power was still incomplete. He secretly speculated, could it be that the fragments need time to fuse with each other? At this time, the Night Order arrived, and the two leading Holy Knights immediately swung their swords at Hans. Hans immediately counterattacked with dark magic. The two knights were instantly defeated. The commander on the side immediately cast divine power to heal the knights. Seeing this, Harvey also moved forward to join the battle, but was stopped by Riesta. She said the priority was to first analyze the combat strength of the Immortal King's descendant. Her obstruction undoubtedly disrupted Harvey's plan. He had intended to pretend to fight Hans and thus buy time. On this side, Hans talked tough on the surface, but inwardly struggled with whether to use full force. But if he went all out, he would kill good people, and he absolutely couldn't do that. Just as he was hesitating, several divine arrows shot toward him, striking his body. This power was both swift and lethal. Hans immediately realized this power came from the Saintess. He used his regeneration ability to heal his wounds in time, thinking inwardly, if I don't want casualties, I must end the battle quickly. Therefore, he decided to first defeat the commander. However, his attack was blocked by the opponent. He sighed inwardly. Not only can she defend in real time, she can also launch offensives, and from her movements I can see she's certain I won't attack her. He deduced someone had seen through his strategy and conveyed it to her, so he decided to peek into her consciousness. But the commander seemed to perceive his every move, suddenly moving to his side and demanding, "You dare to pry!" Riesta also urgently said, "I knew he hasn't completely absorbed the fragment yet," she chanted again, launching an offensive. Divine arrows and the Holy Knight's swords attacked Hans simultaneously, but Hans handled this fierce assault with ease, while also detecting the sneak attack from the Holy Knight behind him. He immediately cast binding magic, restraining that Holy Knight's movements. The Holy Knight shouted in astonishment, "How can he read so many people's movements at once? I clearly blocked his invasion into consciousness." Harvey stole a glance at the commander, thinking, "Sorry, Senior, after all I heard the battle plan. There's nothing I can do about it." Another white-haired Holy Knight struggled to continue fighting, but Hans let out a cold laugh. Then his eyes flashed, forcefully declaring, "The Immortal King fragments in my body have just completely fused as one." His aura surged powerfully, dark power filling his entire body, the pressure bearing down on everyone. Riesta was so frightened, tears streamed down her face, despairing internally. In the end, we were a step too late. After a transformation, Hans murmured, "You lackeys of the church fall into fear." At this instant, the system notification sounded. Having experienced and overcome, dominated and transcended death, achievement unlocked, became the Immortal King. Feeling the overwhelming aura of the new Immortal King, the white-haired Holy Knight claimed there was still a chance, since this was divine ground that could suppress opponents' power. He vowed to stop that demon even at the cost of his own life. He immediately ordered everyone to charge. Watching them swarm toward him, Hans thought to himself, after all, they couldn't see the status bars. He had just acquired instant death immunity and gained the special skill Heart of Corruption. His undead trait had also evolved into Heart of the Undead, which meant he was now invincible. Hans activated Abyss Eyes first. With just a gaze, he could plunge opponents into panic and chaos, and dominate lower-tier monsters. Seeing soldiers falling one after another, the white-haired knight urgently commanded everyone not to make eye contact with the Immortal King. After opening with Abyss Eyes, Hans proceeded to step 2, reviving his undead legion. Countless bones rapidly gathered together, forming a giant undead creature, a flesh golem. With one sweep of the golem's massive hand, soldiers were knocked down in droves. Seeing the Night Order crumble so easily, Hans found it rather boring. He declared he would settle things with the church once and for all. Riesta encouraged herself internally, "Pull yourself together. If I retreat now, the entire continent will be in danger." She steeled her resolve and immediately called out to Harvey, removed the badge symbolizing her status as the Saintess, and handed it to him, ordering him to retreat and urging him to become stronger. One day, he must return to stop the Immortal King. After giving her instructions, she ordered the soldiers to clear a path for Harvey and ensure his safe escape. The soldiers fought with growing fervor, which made Hans extremely irritated as he roared about wiping them all out at once. At that moment, the blonde knight flashed to his side, but Hans sensed him. He immediately captured the blonde knight with dark power. Despite being in enemy hands, the blonde knight said firmly, "It doesn't matter, I've already achieved my goal. As long as Lord Harvey survives, I don't care how many times I sacrifice this life." Hans replied in an ominous tone, "Fine, foolish human, as you wish. I'll crush your skull." But before he could finish, someone punched him right in the face. Harvey hadn't retreated. Instead, he chose to confront the Immortal King head-on. He first used Leap, instantly appearing behind Hans before he could react, then charged up a strike that forced Hans back several meters. Hans blocked the blow and secretly cast a spell, conjuring several magic spikes that shot toward Harvey. The magic spikes pierced through his armor on the surface, but didn't harm him at all underneath. He couldn't help but silently praise Hans for his perfect control of force. But to outsiders, the battle looked extremely brutal. Riesta said anxiously, "I entrusted our future to you. Why won't you run?" Harvey replied, "I didn't join the church to save my own skin, abandoning comrades who fight with a resolve to die, and those who sacrifice themselves to protect righteousness. That's what a coward does, and cowards have no right to talk about protecting the world." With that, the badge in his hand blazed with brilliant light. He struggled to stand upright, pointing his sword at Hans. "Immortal King, even if I have to break my sword today, I will destroy you." Before he finished speaking, the long sword in his hand suddenly burst with dazzling light. Then the system notified him that he had acquired the special skill, Light Sword, as holy text materialized along the blade. He thought to himself, "Perfect! Time to head toward the ending." He then charged at Hans, thrusting the light sword straight into his body. On the surface, they fought to the death, but internally they were mutually praising each other's coolness. As the scene reached its climax, they unanimously decided to deliver their final lines and bid farewell to everyone. Hans looked down at the sword piercing his body and said, "Church trash, what's your name?" Harvey answered loudly, "My name is Harvey." Due to receiving a fatal attack, Hans triggered his instant death immunity skill, transforming into a wisp of black smoke as he whispered, "You dare wound me, I'll remember you." With that, he vanished from the spot. Harvey said unwillingly, "Damn it," he got away. Afterward, like any typical protagonist, he fainted at the right moment after battling the boss. His companions timely supported him, and timely made some deeply moving remarks. When he heard the blonde knight praising him as the chosen one, Harvey couldn't help but secretly smile. Having witnessed the entire self-directed performance, director Song Han clapped his hands and said, "What a tear-jerking heroic legend." Hans, who ultimately resurrected as the Immortal King, and Harvey, who defeated Hans. A classic destined confrontation between hero and demon lord. Song Han quickly opened the karma shop to check if the money had arrived. After some investigation, he was delighted to discover nearly 1 million in his account. Without hesitation, he chose to enhance his innate skill. The next second, the system notification sounded, "Acquired special skill, character customization." Then Hans's costume change interface actually appeared on the screen. It turned out character customization opened 2 options: create avatar and modify avatar. Modify avatar allowed changing the appearance and stats of existing avatars, while create avatar gave a one-time opportunity to set the avatar's appearance and stats when first creating them. The biggest change was the addition of a select gender option. Song Han pressed the female gender option without hesitation, but found he couldn't select it yet. He then noticed the prompt box below displaying, "Can create related races by consuming specific materials." He immediately looked at the world tree branch on the desk beside him that Sahiri had given him. He chose to use it as the material, and created an elf race avatar. Since he could customize the character, he naturally gave himself the face of a peerless beauty, along with long, slender limbs. At the stats allocation phase, as an elf, he naturally maxed out nature affinity. After completing all settings, Song Han named this handsome elf avatar Hellas. However, as soon as Hellas appeared before him, he glared angrily and said, "This is really unpleasant." He immediately realized that Hans's dark magic was corroding Hellas's body, so he hastily dismissed Hans's summon. After finishing all this, he took a storybook from the bookshelf, preparing to use it as reference to write a legend about the mercenary king. Meanwhile, Harry retrieved his custom-made wolfskin hat from a shop. The leisurely stroll after battle felt quite pleasant to him. At that moment, he suddenly remembered there was a group of guys who specifically bullied outsiders at Hubert's shop, so he decided to teach them a lesson. However, as he passed by a group of drinking men, his special outfit drew mockery. One man said disdainfully, "What a disgrace to Southerners." Harry immediately called out to him. The man panicked slightly, thinking Harry was about to fight, but unexpectedly Harry asked, "Which bastard is disgracing Southerners?" The man immediately roared, "It's you!" Another brown-haired man raised a wooden club, wanting to teach Harry a lesson. He swung it at Harry, but Harry's hand was completely unharmed while the club broke instead. The man stumbled back several steps in fright. Harry examined them carefully and recognized they were Southern warriors. If he could become familiar with these guys, he could become a great Southern hero, while his other avatars would serve as the great hero's close companions. At this point, the black-haired man pointed at Harry's wolfskin hat and told him to change it, since such attire was only worn during traditional ceremonies. Harry asked naively, "Don't Southerners wear this kind of clothing anymore?" The man flew into a rage. "You bastard, I really can't stand listening to this anymore." He immediately challenged Harry to a duel, stating they would fight according to Southern tradition. Harry readily agreed while proposing an additional condition. He wanted all 3 to attack together. The men felt humiliated, believing Harry was trampling on their dignity. Seeing this, Harry changed the number to 2. After all, the remaining one needed to help carry the 2 he'd knocked down. The result was predictable. Except for the man with the headband, the other 2 were sent flying with 1 punch each from Harry. The man with the headband said fearfully, "You're not a Southerner! With such strength, how could you not have a warrior's mark?" Harry explained he didn't have the mark due to certain personal reasons. He then elaborated on the mercenary king legend that Song Han had written based on inspiration from storybooks. About 20 years ago, Harry's tribe was holding duels to select the next chieftain. His father, once the tribe's strongest warrior, achieved final victory. According to tradition, the old chieftain needed to grant the victor 1 wish. However, his father's wish was to refuse marriage to the chieftain's daughter, because they were blood-related siblings. The chieftain's daughter thought he was spouting nonsense, but the chieftain confirmed it was all true. She wasn't his biological daughter. Furious and humiliated, she immediately ordered Harry's father's execution. Harry's father said he would buy time while his wife, Harry's mother, escaped quickly. At that time, his mother was pregnant with Harry and couldn't help her husband fight. His father, to protect his mother and their unborn child, single-handedly blocked the tribal warriors and died heroically in battle. To evade pursuit, his mother hid in a remote cave and raised him there through hardship. At this point, Harry said, "However, even my mother passed away from illness not long ago." After speaking, he looked at them and said, "That's why I don't have the mark. Do you understand now?" Unexpectedly, such a tragic story moved the 3 grown men to tears. They all embraced Harry, praising him as a true Southern warrior. A barely noticeable cunning smile appeared at the corner of Harry's mouth as he thought, "My acting is truly outstanding." After this incident, they became brothers directly, and Harry naturally became their big brother. When asked why he came to this place from the south, he fabricated another new story. After his mother's death, he felt very lost, not knowing how to continue living. Just then, someone proactively talked with him and offered help. That person had now become his best friend, a young merchant named Hubert. However, Hubert had recently encountered some trouble. He was being threatened by thugs, and Harry rushed here from the south after learning of this. The men were indignant and expressed they would help their brother. Harry pretended to be moved, crying profusely. He immediately embraced them in a group hug, but internally rejoiced at the plan's smooth progress. He intended to use these men to deal with those threatening Hubert, then officially launch his economic plan, mass purchasing pepper, which was precious in this other world, from Earth, while distributing common magical items from here to Earth, where magical resources were scarce, to make a profit. He would then use the proceeds to open a path for rapid growth. Meanwhile, the men bid farewell to Harry, preparing to go help at Hubert's shop. Harry was secretly pleased. With these reliable subordinates, Hubert's problem should be smoothly resolved. At the same time, Hellas arrived outside the Grand Temple. He told the gate guards he was Harry's friend and brought a letter of introduction, requesting entry to the temple to visit Rapori. The guards examined the crude drawings and wild, flowing handwriting on the letter, confirming it was indeed from Harry's hand, and let him through. Rapori welcomed Hellas's arrival. After Hellas exchanged polite greetings with him, he discovered a magical phenomenon. When he used his elven eyes to observe the high elf's eyes, he found those eyes exceptionally bright. Just staring quietly like this, there was a trance-like feeling of being drawn in. Rapori took a sip of tea and said, "I heard you're Mr. Harry's close friend. Seeing you wearing the bracelet I gave him, it's indeed true." Hellas said he accepted it because it belonged to his kindred. Rapori told him not to be nervous, he wasn't angry. So Hellas explained his purpose for coming. He wanted to learn how to control nature's power and make contracts with spirits, having lived alone since childhood and never having the chance to study these things. Upon hearing this, Rapori quietly used the spirit power in his eyes to probe the other's talent, and found his qualifications were exceptional. Afterward, Rapori invited Hellas to go outside and enjoy the breeze. On the balcony, he told Hellas he couldn't personally teach him, as he would soon be leaving the temple, but he invited him to go to the Elven Kingdom instead. Hellas was very surprised upon hearing this. He asked, "Don't you need qualifications to go there?" Rapori explained that while usually only descendants of high elves could enter the kingdom, there were exceptions. Those with elven qualifications could also enter. Rapori gazed at Hellas and said, "When you looked into my eyes just now, did you feel something?" The next second, Hellas felt completely drawn in. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dreamlike sacred place, with the air filled with fresh and rich forest scents. Hellas wondered if this was similar to the consciousness space from his encounter with Skybreakers, but the atmosphere here was clearer and purer. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a beautiful pink-haired elf sitting in a tree. He couldn't determine whether she was the elf goddess or the world tree itself. Then the pink-haired elf suddenly leaped lightly down from the tree and came before Hellas. She gently cupped his face, gazing at that magnificent sacred countenance. Hellas's cheeks instantly flushed red, his heart pounding like a drum, internally exclaiming, "Why is the goddess doing this?" Then he heard the elf goddess speak several words in a language he couldn't understand. Actually, she was saying, "My child, come quickly, come to the Elven Kingdom." With that, she transformed into a flurry of green leaves, and Hellas confirmed she was the world tree itself. He wanted to ask what she had just said, but he had already separated from the dream and returned to reality. Rapori beside him said, "It seems you sense the world tree." Hellas asked, "I just saw an elf. Was she the world tree?" Rapori smiled, so she appeared in that form. "It seems she met you in the guise most familiar to us. It appears the world tree is quite interested in Mr. Hellas." Hellas was shocked to hear this, breaking out in cold sweat, internally realizing, "So I even received the world tree's attention?" Meanwhile, at Hubert's shop, the thugs came to threaten Hubert again, telling him to close his shop and leave town. However, Hubert remained calm and even politely invited them to have tea together. The lead man lost his patience and knocked a teacup from Hubert's hand, saying fiercely, "I told you to get out of here today, or do you want to die here?" Looking at the blade held to his neck, Hubert said, "Oh my, you don't like tea, but my friends really do." As soon as he finished speaking, several figures suddenly appeared behind him. The next second, a heavy punch struck the man's jaw. It turned out Harry and his companions had arrived just in time, specifically to teach these thugs a lesson. Seeing their boss knocked unconscious, the other two panicked, but they couldn't escape either. Harry and his group were already charging at them. These thugs who had long harassed Hubert were finally completely dealt with. That evening, everyone gathered for a cheerful dinner. Drunk with excitement, one man suddenly stood up and said emotionally, after seeing Big Brother's skills, "I'm even more convinced you should have the mark." With that, he removed his shirt and showed Harry the warrior mark on his chest. He mentioned there was a curse master from the south who was skilled in marking, asking if Harry wanted one too. Harry immediately grabbed the man like picking up a chicken and set off to find that curse master. Meanwhile, the thugs who'd been beaten that afternoon hadn't given up and instead knocked over an old woman's stall, threatening her to pay the protection fee immediately. The old woman said she simply couldn't afford such an exorbitant fee. The thug leader grabbed her collar, pointing at the bandage on his chin. "I've had the worst luck today, and you dare say you have no money? Even if you don't have money, you'd better find a way to get it." He was about to continue threatening the old woman when he heard heavy footsteps approaching from a distance. The next second, his expression changed dramatically, showing terror. The man who'd knocked him out with one punch earlier reappeared. This time, Harry gave him a merciless elbow strike to the face. After knocking down the thug, Harry turned to the old woman politely. "Good evening, ma'am. I'd like you to give me a mark." The old woman was confused for a moment and could only invite Harry inside first. After learning Harry wanted to obtain the warrior mark, the old woman asked if he knew that while the mark brought great power, it would continuously drain his life force. Harry indicated he understood the consequences. The old woman exclaimed, "It's been a long time since I've seen such monster-like life force. With your qualifications, you might be able to bear the highest mark, Battle King." Harry immediately asked excitedly for her to inscribe the Battle King mark, but the old woman said she couldn't do it, because that was a technique no one had mastered in hundreds of years, and she didn't know it either. So Harry settled for second best, requesting the Great Warrior mark instead. But the old woman looked troubled, explaining there were difficulties with this too. She lacked materials and hadn't inscribed a mark in a long time. Most importantly, to receive a mark, one needed corresponding warrior achievements. At minimum, one had to cross the Northern Steel Fortress mountain range alone and defeat the ogre lord there. The man named Lu Wang slammed the table in anger. "An ogre? Do you know how terrifying that monster is? Are you trying to send my brother to his death?" But Harry calmly pulled a massive skull from his subspace and asked, "You mean this thing?" Looking at the skull that was bigger than an entire person, the old woman's expression startled. "You actually eliminated it by yourself." Harry laughed heartily. "Of course, the ogre was nothing but trash to me." The old woman broke out in cold sweat. I know you're a very capable warrior now, but please come back in a few days. I don't have enough strength recently. I need sufficient energy to inscribe your mark, but I haven't been eating much lately." But Harry waved his hand, indicating he'd take care of the food issue. With that, he turned and left. As it turned out, Harry's solution was to directly find that thug leader. This time he showed no mercy, beating him until blood streamed from his nose. The man wailed, asking why he was being treated this way. Harry explained it was precisely because he'd provoked that curse master. The man trembled all over. "You're saying that old hag is a southern curse master? Sorry, I didn't know. I thought she was just a healer in this town." Harry didn't respond, instead punching the ground beside the man's face. The man said in terror he'd never provoke her again. But Harry just picked up the scattered wrapped food from the ground and said quietly, "You'd better keep your word." Lu Wang, who had dealt with the other two lackeys nearby, came over to ask Harry what to do next. Harry smiled slightly, telling Lu Wang to help him clear out the various spoils from the thug's lair, including plenty of meat. He planned to use this meat to host a barbecue party. Meanwhile, the old woman was sweeping inside when she saw Harry and Lu Wang returning, carrying several wooden crates. She asked what was inside, and Harry answered with a smile, "Wine and meat. How about it? Is this much food enough for you to replenish your strength?" His expression and words were strikingly similar to her late son's. The old woman felt warmth in her heart, thinking, if my son were still alive, he'd probably be about his age now. Though moved inside, she still said proudly on the surface, "At my age, I can't chew meat anymore, but given your sincerity, I'll eat a little." However, the old woman began eating heartily. She not only devoured meat with big bites, she also drank wine as if it were water, leaving the two grown men feeling inadequate. Looking at the mountain of empty plates on the table, Harry thought in surprise, she actually ate everything. After eating and drinking her fill, the old woman was instantly energized and eagerly wanted to inscribe Harry's mark. She took out a long, thin needle and heated it over fire to sterilize it, asking Harry, who was lying on the bed, if he was mentally prepared. Harry said excitedly he was quite used to lying on beds receiving surgery. As soon as he finished speaking, the old woman stuffed an old doll into his mouth. The old woman said this was the doll her son had bitten during his marking. Then she tried to pierce the needle into Harry's body, but his body was so tough the needle tip snapped instantly upon pressure. But this didn't faze the old woman. She took out another needle. She focused her mind, gathering all her strength at the needle's point, then fiercely pierced Harry's skin. Golden light immediately burst forth. Through the old woman's meticulous engraving, a complex and radiant mark was finally completed. At the same time, the system notification sounded in Harry's mind. Acquired skill, Karkoth-style battle mark. Current mark, Great Warrior. Harry marveled that the mark's effect far exceeded simply enhancing his body with bio-aura. This way, even without activating flesh mutation, he could defeat ogres barehanded. It was absolutely perfect. At that moment, he noticed the old woman beside him was nearly collapsing from exhaustion. He quickly reached out to support her, asking concernedly about her condition. The old woman waved her hand, saying not to worry. She was just tired from using so much power after such a long time. Upon hearing this, Harry looked at Lu Wang with a tragic expression. "My good brother, we have a mission now. We need more meat. To continue inscribing other marks, we absolutely cannot let Grandma collapse." The old woman was dumbfounded, thinking, "Let me rest first." Meanwhile, in a temple room, Riesta was praying quietly for Harvey. At that moment, the white-haired knight, Cardinal Piwen, entered the room and asked softly, "Are you still praying for him? If you continue like this, your body won't hold up. Rest first, then continue." Riesta still looked worried, but I can't stop worrying. I still can't forget his heroic figure when he confronted the Immortal King, never retreating until the very last moment. Piwen smiled slightly. Indeed, that figure was like witnessing the birth of a new hero. Upon hearing this, worship appeared on Riesta's face as she thought, "Is Sir Harvey the new hero?" At that moment, Harvey suddenly woke up and sat up, saying, "Cardinal, you flatter me too much." Riesta stepped forward to ask about his condition. Harvey said thanks to her attentive care, he recovered so quickly. Riesta suddenly grabbed his hand excitedly, saying with enthusiasm, "Lord Harvey, I want to nominate you as Autarika's hero." This was exactly what Harvey wanted, and he couldn't help but secretly chuckle, thinking, "Now I've officially secured both Demon Lord and hero protagonist identities. Celebrate." Hans, who plays the Demon Lord. At the same time, Hans stood on top of a building and said, "Since the hero has been born, I should fulfill my responsibilities as Demon Lord too. I'll become even more notorious than I am now." His eyes eyes flashed as he began overlooking all of the city. I can see it clearly. Those ugly stains on the bodies of evildoers. With that, he leaped straight down from the rooftop. I'm sending you all to hell. At that moment, several nurses were hurriedly loading an injured patient into an ambulance. They knew full well this must be another victim of that mysterious masked man. After bringing the patient to the hospital room, a young man used dark magic to examine his condition. The bearded man beside him asked if he'd discovered anything. An Sung-jin, the dark mage dispatched by the Ability Management Bureau, said they only knew they'd been targeted by an extremely dangerous individual. If you carelessly provoke this person, there's only one outcome, death. That masked man is an unreasonable monster. To possess such powerful dark magic, this body is just an empty shell. The soul has likely long become a slave. Rather than falling into such a monster's hands, it would be better to just die. The bearded man said helplessly, then what should we do? An Sung-jin admitted frankly, his power is so strong I can't compare at all. To oppose a dark mage of that level is suicide. You said the masked man is the culprit, right? In that case, let me examine this curse in more detail. With that, he reached toward the body again, trying to probe deeper. However, at the moment of contact, he suddenly saw the masked man staring directly at him through some connection. An Sung-jin was instantly horrified, trembling all over, and fell back onto the floor. His expression showed despair as he mumbled, my death date has arrived. That guy, he saw me. I tampered with his curse technique. If he catches me, I'm definitely dead. He stood up numbly. In that case, there's only one method left. With that, he opened the window and was about to jump. If I die right now, at least it'll be a quick death. The bearded man quickly rushed forward to stop him. Wait, that guy only punishes evildoers. You haven't done bad things. You'll be fine. An Sung-jin immediately smiled with relief. Hearing you say that, I feel much better. My whole body doesn't feel so tense anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, his body went limp and he fell directly down. He'd actually fainted from fright. All of this was witnessed by Hans from the rooftop across from the hospital. He found An Sung-jin quite interesting. He was a rather capable dark mage with no evil aura about him. He decided to find an opportunity to meet him next time. The next evening, at Sung Yun-han's home, looking at pages full of news reports about the masked man, Sung Yun-han knew Hans's popularity was unstoppable. But this wasn't entirely good news, since being so high profile would likely attract trouble. Just as he worried about how to proceed, there was suddenly a knock at the door. When he opened it and saw who it was, his expression showed surprise. Standing at the door was his old friend, Kang Tae-san. Sung Yun-han nervously invited Kang Tae-san inside. The other asked why his reaction was so cold. Sung Yun-han smiled awkwardly on the surface while sighing internally. Because you're precisely the friend I least want to see right now. As it turned out, Kang Tae-san was a member of the Ability Management Bureau's Criminal Investigation Division. He was not only Sung Yun-han's only childhood friend, but also the friend who would personally visit during Sung Yun-han's reclusion. Kang Tae-san examined him carefully and suddenly said, "You look different. It seems you've developed passion for life." Sung Yun-han replied, "I can't stay stuck in the past forever. My parents wouldn't want me to be depressed all the time either." Hearing his friend say this, Kang Tae-san was genuinely happy for him. And when he heard Sung Yun-han say he occasionally went out now, Kang Tae-san showed a surprised expression. Sung Yun-han added, "Thank you for always making special trips to keep me company during my hardest times." Kang Tae-san paused, then said seriously, "Seeing your state today, I think I can tell you about this now. You know why I joined the Criminal Investigation Division, right?" Sung Yun-han knew Kang Tae-san regarded his parents as family, which was why he decided to join the Investigation Division after their deaths. Kang Tae-san explained that while the incident was classified as an Awakener terrorist attack, it was actually done by Skybreakers. Because those people operated extremely meticulously, no trace of them had been found yet, but the masked man's appearance provided new leads. Upon hearing this, Sung Yun-han thought, I actually provided clues to the Ability Management Bureau. Was I too high profile? After speaking, Kang Tae-san said he'd notify Sung Yun-han immediately when there was new information. Sung Yun-han probed in response, "Since the masked man has been so helpful, why is the Ability Management Bureau still trying to catch him?" Kang Tae-san said angrily, "That's exactly what frustrates me. Why arrest someone so capable? Why not just leave him alone?" Sung Yun-han agreed with him, internally relieved. Fortunately, Tae-san is well disposed toward the masked man. During their chat, Kang Tae-san casually flipped through Sung Yun-han's novel, then advised him to give up being an author, because he thought stories about heroes and demon lords were too cliché, and the name Hans was too corny. Sung Yun-han embarrassedly snatched back the manuscript, arguing the name was clearly classic. At that moment, Kang Tae-san's phone rang. Seeing the time, he immediately stood up to return to work. As he was leaving, Sung Yun-han called out to him, asking concernedly about his grandmother's health. Kang Tae-san paused upon hearing this, then candidly told Sung Yun-han that grandma's condition had deteriorated significantly, and he'd already prepared himself mentally. Sung Yun-han looked worried, asking if there was anything he could help with. Kang Tae-san waved his hand, telling him to focus on writing his novel and not worry about this. He'd find a way to handle it. But Sung Yun-han couldn't help remembering things from childhood. Back then, Kang Tae-san's grandmother would always hold his hand and buy him treats. She always had a loving expression, doting on him like her own grandson. Those times were among his few warm memories. But now grandma was so seriously ill, and his friend who'd always helped him was having such a hard time, yet he couldn't help at all. This made him feel very frustrated. Suddenly, he thought of a method that might help grandma. He quickly pulled up the system's character panel. It displayed Harvey's information. This was the hope he mentioned for saving grandma.